Hello, am I doing this right? Am I here? Oh, can anybody hear me? Hello, don't think. Oh, we are. Martin can hear me. Thank God for that. Thought I'd done something wrong there. Wow. Oh my God. Well, do you know what? Just something's just come to me about I think I've asked you all this before about the film with Robin Williams, God rest his little soul. What Dreams May Come. Has anyone on here seen it? Because now I can share the screen. Can't believe it. That I've just gone on to YouTube and I'll be able to share it with you. But does anybody know if I'm okay to share a trailer? Because I don't want to get Leanie into trouble. So if anyone can let me know that before I do it. Because I don't think I'll do it until if Leanie, if you're there, am I okay to share a trailer of a film? It's a new film. Hi, Anne. Good to see you, love. Good to see you, Pink. Lizzo, let me go up the chat and see who's here. I've just been eating popcorn. I'm going to choke. Hi, Liz, Martin, Pink. Who else? Where am I? Anne. Oh, thanks for coming in, everyone. Oh my God, I've got a bit of popcorn stuck in the back of my throat. Hold on. It's make horrible noise. I need a drink. If you say make a cup, I'll be made up. And bring. Have we got any sweets left? Oh, we've had them all, haven't we? Okay, now. No wonder I clicked the mute by accident. What was I talking about? Oh, I've just come on, Wild Angel, to read the book, the rest of the book we've been doing daily. I was talking about music. I didn't say I was talking about music. I was talking about the film. What was I talking about? No, I was just saying I don't know how long, if you're up to date with the book that I'm about to read to you, Madeline and Wild Angel. I'm not sure you know about Madeline, um, and if you're even going to stay to listen. I just wanted to update you where we were up to. If you were going to stay to listen. But, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. There's only ever been three of us in chat. Um, anyway, so it's all good. Hang on, how do I get that down? So can everyone hear me now? Hello, darling. According to Leanie. Leanie, I've been telling them about a film when Robin Williams made it called Dreams. What Oh my God. What Dreams May Come, it's called. And I found a place on YouTube that does trailers. And I'm just wondering, would I be able to share that trailer on your channel? Or would it get you a copyright strike? I don't want to do it, you see, without asking you for permission. Because I just thought, with it being an old film, with it being a trailer, would you be allowed to do it? And you can hear me now. Brilliant. I should really look it up, shouldn't I? Let me just look it up on my phone. Hold on. Oh, God, I can't get over it. I can go on Google now and everything. So let's see. Um, can can I share a movie trailer on my channel? Can I? Can I? Oh, share. Getting all the words wrong. So let's see what it says. Yes, you can share a movie trailer on your YouTube chat. Oh, but you may have to consider the following. Let's see. Yes, Yes, Maggie, just drop every now and again, and then commentate. Okay, it says if you need to, but you consider the following, Leni. It says fair use. You can reuse copyrighted material under certain circumstances without getting permission from the copyright owner. For example, you can repurpose content and add value, keep it short, and use it outside of the original context. You know what that means. However, you should be careful of background sounds, as artists and their agents are often protective of their content. Okay. A movie trailer is a commercial advertisement for a future movie theatre release. It's also known as a preview, coming attraction. I want to know what it is. I just want to know if I can share it. So Lee, put the fair use up. Okay. Oh my God, oh, it's up in 2 seconds of you saying I've got it right. And hiya Jeffrey, welcome to the channel. It's going to be a bit boring at the minute, Jeffrey, because I'm going to be reading from a book in the minute that I've been reading for the week. Madeline, about the little girl that went missing in the UK. Whereabouts are you from, Jeffrey? Okay, okay. So hang on. I'll read that then before I put the movie on. Yeah, just wanted to have a little gab first in the chat. Not used to seeing this many in. Oh, from the USA. Well, welcome from the USA. I'm from the UK, Liverpool, as you can probably tell from the accent. I hope you can understand me okay. And it'd be nice if you could hit the like and even sub up to the channel and come back when you've got the channel owner, the host, according to Lainey. I'm just a co-host. And Lainey is brilliant. You love Lainey. So I hope you do come back. Oh, my beautiful pictures from the Big E. Someone comment and say gross. What do you mean, Jeff? Can I call you Jeff, Jeffrey? Yeah, I know, and it's always best I'd rather go through Leonie because it wouldn't be fair of me to do that. If to be mine, I wouldn't have even given it a thought and just put it on. Yeah, and it is always best. Oh, yeah, Lizzo's got it up there as well, so that's good. That's good. So I have to say it before I put the movie on. Oh God, I hope there's no big words in there because Jeffrey, are you from Tattooed Angels channel? Are you, Jeffrey? Are you from Tattooed Angels? Good to see you anyway. Good to see you all. May as well. I know by the time I finish the book, there'll be 3 people. But I get that. I really do. Hang on. Yeah. God, see what I mean? You know that pink, honest to God. Jeffrey Pink 1178 has a brain that is fantastic. She remembers everyone. She remembers everything. And if we forget anything, we just ask her. It's really good. A friend of mine, Anne says, bought a license for music and then he got a strike from YouTube for copyright anyway. Well, you know what? We got told, like, Lini got a second channel, Two Chicks in a Pond. And we thought it'd be fine to go over there and play some music and have a karaoke. And she got a warning over that because they said, if you're not, if you're not, what is it called? Monetized with it, then you monetized. That's it, monetized. If you're not monetized, you don't get any strikes or anything. And she got a telling off for that. So I don't understand how people can all play music and have YouTube oh my God, karaoke's and they don't lose the channel or anything. How's that? I didn't even know you could buy a license for music. I didn't even know. So that means if you buy that license, that you can play music on your channel, Anne. Is that right? And how much is the license and how long does it last? Sorry, I was yelling at the TV. Well, we didn't hear you, Lee. We didn't hear you yelling at the TV. You still decorating, girl? Wow. Are you on the show? She doesn't go till the 29th, does she? That's what I mean. So, Fran's just been saying that someone she know's got a license and they got a copyright strike. But then when he proved that he had a license, it was all right, but it took 2 weeks. So I'd be interested to know how much the license is. You can buy a license for a specific song and you can use it lifetime. Oh, so you've got to buy a license just for one song. Oh, that's crazy, Annie, isn't it? Bloody hell. What if you want good fuel, like? So can you pick how many songs and then it gives you the price, obviously? Because wouldn't you think they just let you get it at a license for music full stop? Like maybe you'd have to renew it every 6 months or something. You can't get a license for every song. That's what I mean. How much does it cost for to get music? If you can do that ever, you know? Oh, I don't know. But I've got my dog snoring in the background, if anyone can hear. And she'll get louder the deeper she goes. Just be warned. Are you still decorating, Leanie, or haven't you started yet? Ask him for us, Sam, please, because I'd love to do a little sing-along night, near Christmas, just to get the party started. You mind your own business, Leanie. She coming in my life, telling me to mind my own business. You'd be getting blocked. Don't think I won't. Just don't even think you're any different than anyone else in this chat. I'm letting you know right now. Chickabee, Pink. Chickabee. I'm made up for you. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? I will. I will. Carry on, Gail. Carry on. Thanks, Anne. Thank you. Block me. Isn't she so cheeky? She thinks I won't, I'd love to block her for a laugh. Oh, yes, ma'am. I pick it right up. Made up, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to get started. I'm terrified to put that film up in case I do it wrong. So when I put it on, I've got to talk, stop it, and then talk, start again. Am I a mod? No, you're not getting modded either. How do I make you a mod? Let's see. Let's see how I make you a mod. Let's see. Oh, no, I can ban you or put you in timeout or delete your comment. But I don't know how to mod you. How do I, how do I, how do I mod on here? Let's have a look. Maggie, you have a troll, Leanie. I know, Anne. She's always trolling me. She just can't be happy for me. She trolls me all the time. She makes my job hard, Sorry, Pink, she's on me tits. You're on my tits. Cheeky me. Told you before to go and suck mine. I want to know. I want to know how I mod it up. No, I'm not going to mod it up anyway. You'd be a nightmare. You'd be a nightmare. Oh, yeah, let's see what edit means. Terrified to press it. But don't come back. You know where I've gone to edit. Oh, nothing's coming up. Let's have a look. See if we go up the top. Does anything come up? Let's see. Share. Click on a comment to share it on screen. Oh, I know that one. I know that one. Oh, well, I'd never be able to make anyone a mod. Not that I would anyway, but I don't even know how you do it. I sound so English. I love it. You do. You should, honest to God, that word you said the other day when you were talking about the Scottish people, I thought, oh my God, she's talking Scouse. It was just one word, but it was Scouse as they come. You have to go. Oh, I have to go to YouTube, click on the name from there. That's how you mob people. Is that how you have to do it as well? You know, wouldn't you think they'd just put it on the screen here, make someone a mod, or in the three little dots it says make a mod, something like that? Crap that in it. So listen, I'll show you this film first. Let's get this fair use set. Hang on. Please God, I can say every word. Oh, where's it gone? Hold on. Hold on. Okay, copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. There you go. There you go. So, let me see if I can do this. Wish me luck. So, I need to... Oh, God. Share screen. Is that what I do? Soon find out. Share screen. I don't think I'm doing it right. Oh, no. Oh, no. Click on that. Go back to StreamYard. Click on that. Click on share screen. Share screen. And then, Chrome tab. Oh, yeah, I'm in it. Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, watch this. Oh.
I love you, Bug.
I love you too.
I'm the doctor. Don't move.
The moment that comes for everyone. Has come for Chris Nielsen.
You've died, Chris.
If heaven is a place where you know only joy.
Oh! Boy, I screwed up. I'm in dog heaven.
You're creating an entire world here, from your imagination, from anything you want.
Where you feel no more fear.
I'm gonna drown.
You can't, you're already dead.
Oh.
And anything you can imagine is real.
It's your world!
Could you?
Guys, I don't know whether you can hear me. Let me go back over to StreamYard, because I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you hear me? Let me know, please, if you can hear me. Hang on, let me get to the comments. You can hear me, that's good. Oh, listen, the film, you've got to watch it. It's absolutely, it's brilliant. I don't even think the trailer does it justice, but there you go. I'm going to put it back on.
You let go of the love you left behind.
I need Annie. That'll change in time. Time does not exist here. And wherever it went, it's not gonna make me need Annie any less.
And how far would you go
You never see her. I'm my soulmate.
to get it back?
I can find her.
Your wife, love you is strong.
You just get me there.
Robin Williams,
It's not about understanding.
It's about not giving up.
Cuba Gooding Jr.,
You find her. You can do it. I believe in you.
Annabella Sciorra,
I'm still here, babe. I still exist.
Oh my
What
God.
dreams may come.
Guys, it's all over. It's all over. What dreams may come. Oh my God. I don't even know if you could see that. The sounds are crap to me. Does it sound terrible to you too? Hang on a minute. How do I now? Hang on. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'll tell you what. There you go now. How do I? God. No, I want to hide. Why isn't it off the screen? Why isn't that off the screen, Lee? Oh, I know why it's not off the screen. Because I clicked on it when it was on everyone's talking about. I found it. I know. Yay! Here you go. You must all be thinking, what the hell is she going on about? Ooh. Okay, so I thought the sounds on that was terrible, but if you could make that out and you've ever not seen that film, watch it. It's brilliant. Right, I'm going to get the book house and I'm going to start now. Got my cuppa here ready. Oh, JB, what dreams may come. Honest to God, it's brilliant. Well, I thought it was at the time. It's an old film. Let's watch it again. I might probably hate it this time. But I was the was the fair use on the screen, so you couldn't see it, Lenny. Who you calling silly ass anyway? You no mirrors in your house. Maggie, you make me scared to go live. Lol, why do I? And look, if I can go live, anyone can. Anyone can. You know, now, I just look at it. Leni did warn me this from the word go. She said, Maggie, you'll be able to come on and just think you're talking on the phone. And you do. And I never thought I would not get nervous. I'm not nervous now talking, but I'm nervous being on this new laptop and scared in case I press something I shouldn't press. If you get me, if you get what, picking up what I'm putting down on. And that's all I'm scared of. But why do I make you scared? What you should do is you should come up on Leni's panel and talk to Leni on a live one day, get up on panel with her and just get talking to her honest. Just practice that way. Someone you're comfortable with. It is like that though, but then you just get a bit addicted. Like I'm thinking now, oh God, am I going to get a bit addicted to this, being able to come on and everyone hear me dead clear, you know what I mean? I think if I went live on mine, which it's never going to happen, I would be on all the time, just talking about shit. I was even in my own world before thinking, imagine if we've got a program here and called Gogglebox. And what it is, it's about people who they've got cameras in their homes and they all say like they put a scary film on one night and it shows you the way they are, what they shout at the telly and things that happen and the way they react, and it's dead funny. And I was thinking, imagine if I sat here and yous watch me or even listen to me while I was watching something on the telly and the way I react. Because if there's a sad one on, you'd hear me sob and you'd hear me say, and if there was a bad one on where I couldn't stand someone in it, you'd hear everything I said. I think it'd be funny. I think it'd be funny. You make it seem so difficult. You know what, Anne? I probably am making it seem so difficult. But now that I know where everything is, it's not, it's right there in front of you. It's just knowing what everything is. Do you know what I mean? Because don't forget, I learnt on my phone. I didn't do it on here. This is why it's difficult for me. I've never used a laptop. It's all new to me. So that's why, honestly, I know Gogglebox, it's an old programme. And are you from here? I thought you were in the US. Yeah, it's still on. It's still on, Gogglebox. Yeah, and Lenny said it's just different working from StreamYard. There's a lot more you can do. The only difference I can see, Lee, to what you can do on here is what I've just done then. Shared something. Everything else that I can see, like having to add yourself to the stage, you just automatically do that on your phone, don't you? But it is easy once you get used to it. Everything is like it's just absolutely me. It's just clicking and finding out. Like I can see private chat, so I know what that means. Brand. Hang on a minute. Brand is what it says on my other. Hold on a minute. Leanie, all our pictures are there. Look, Lee. Oh, hang on. Look, Lee. Woo. Oh my God. Oh, I'm made up. Oh, look at it. Bluesy boozy. Oh, I don't need to go anywhere. I'm made up. See what I mean? I found it. I'm whereabouts in Turkey, do you live? That's where I'm going in October. Sorry, Baby Chow was on the phone. Go on, go to Baby Chow. Hope he's all right, Lee. Oh, you're just pulling me leg. I do make it sound odd, though. Oh, God, whereabouts? Oh, God. Tell me. I love Turkey. I used to nearly almost live in Turkey myself a few years ago. I was there by the minute with my mates. Made loads of mates out there. All girls and lads. Fellas are trying to get you. Because I used to say to them, go away, you just want a passport. They'd be laughing. So where about in Turkey are you from, love? What's SA? What's SA? I'm from SA. See, now, before my brain got menopaused, I wasn't knowing what you meant by SA. I'm from South Africa. Oh, right, okay. So, yeah, 25 years. Well, where about in Turkey, if you don't mind me asking, Anne? 25 years, wow. 25 years, eh? Long, long time, that. So, you know all the Turkish. Seni seviyorum. I know that bit. The Asian side, Maggie, that means nothing to me, girl. But I'll look it up. See? Don't say no more, Anne, girl, if you don't want to. It's all good. Right, I'm going to start the book. And I'll give Lenny a few minutes to get off the phone from Baby Chow. Oh, we are? Oh, no, I thought that was it. And I haven't even been over to your channel yet. I'm sure that I have subscribed to it, though. 2 hours drive from Istanbul. Wow. God. Do you get it? The people, I mean, the people are absolutely fabulous where I've been, but sometimes you think they're fabulous because they've got to make you feel comfortable, you know, the waiters and the work in the hotels and stuff. So you think, are they being nice because of that? But we used to stay with them once they were out of work. We go with them. We used to have little football pitches. We used to go play footy with them. And they were lovely, lovely people. Are they lovely to you? Are you married to a Turkan? It's a nice, quiet, coastal town. Oh, must be lovely. Lenny, if you're listening, just let me know if you're going to come and listen to the book. Because if you're not, I'll crack on. And if you're all, I'll wait for you, girl, not a problem. Turkish people are warm and welcoming. Yeah, well, it's all the people I've met have been like that. Absolutely lovely. I met a girl, she was a hairdresser, and we used to write all the time. And you know what? I don't know how I lost contact. I can't even remember. She was getting, I think she was having a baby. She got married. She was having a baby. Last I heard, Angelique, was it Angelique? No, it wasn't. She was a lovely girl. I'm trying to think. This is how bad my brain's gone. And tell your mum, I only really know. Yeah, me too. Ishmael. I went to Ishmael. That used to be lovely because it was only small. And Marmaris was a bit crazy. It was all right when I first used to go because I was into all that. But then as you get older, you can't be bothered. I mean, loads of people my age, I know, are still into clubbing it. Oh, I'm well out of clubbing it now. Met him online in 1997, came to visit in 1999 and got married in a month, and I'm still here. Oh my God. And I met a girl who married a Turk, and she was there with him. One of the girls was dead unhappy. She wanted to get away. He was bad to her. But this fella he was really lovely, and she was really happy. And they've been married for a few years. I told you they were there. Shut up, Lena, you didn't. You said you had to go to mine. Helverton, Hellingfell, away. Away. You have a great day too, Helverton. Because I can't pronounce your name, and I'm so sorry. But you're welcome into chat. And it's nice to see you. Where are you from, Helverton? Am I saying it rightly? Told you once you started using the laptop. Oh, okay. I thought you said you told me where the pictures were. They're exactly the same as in the phone. Only it says brands and it looks like a patent palace. What the fuck's got a patent palace? By the pictures. Wouldn't it just say pictures, overlays, and whatever? Yeah, you get the bad apples everywhere. You do, Anne. You're right. You do. I thought I'd been stuff marrying a Turk, you know. Swear to God, they're gorgeous people. Because I was single when I went. But I think I must have been, I was terrified that they weren't sincere, do you know what I mean? Oh, the guys from South Africa, Lee. Oh, wasn't that lovely? I was very lucky. I got the best of them all. Oh, I'm happy for you, Anne. I really am. That's lovely. Lovely little love story. If you'd have heard me and Alec earlier, it's put anyone off. Not a bad no, you know. He does everything for me. It takes years like to paint and stuff like that, but he's good to me. I'm from USA as well, West Coast. Well, you're very, very welcome, and I hope that you can understand me okay. I'm from Liverpool in the UK. Is baby Chow okay, Lee? I'm done. Let's go. Okay, guys, let's go. Let's get reading this book. See, I said it properly. Book, not the way I speak. Book. Okay, I'm opening the book. Here we go. Everyone, welcome to chat and thanks for being here. I'm going to carry on reading Madeline. On Sunday, the 20th of May, Jerry left for the UK. It was the first time we'd been apart since coming to Portugal, and it was an emotional separation for both of us. Going back to Leicester alone with Madeline gone made it particularly hard for Jerry. He had decided not to stay at our house. it would have been too distressing at this stage, and from a practical point of view, there is no doubt that the media would have set up shop outside. In the end, he spent both nights with friends who had so far managed to steer away of the media, which was much better for him. I was fine too. Trish and Sandy were there, and I had Amali and Sean and Cuddle Cat. At Monday's meeting with the British police, Jerry was told about plans to launch an appeal in the UK aimed at holidaymakers who had been in the Algarve in the weeks leading up to Madeline's abduction. They would be encouraged to send in to the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Agency any photographs they had taken in which people they didn't recognise could be seen in the background. CEOP would use facial recognition software to screen these pictures for known offenders who might have been in the area. To us, this seemed a massive step forward, a sign that the unique collaboration between the UK and Portuguese police was beginning to bear some fruit. Hang on a minute, guys. I need to move this laptop just slightly out of my way so I can hold the book. Can you hear me okay while I'm at it? Just have a quick swig. Let's see. Okay. It was later that same day that Jerry met Clarence Mitchell for the first time. Clarence, a former BBC News correspondent working for the civil service, was the director of the media monitoring unit attached to 10 Downing Street. He still had many press contacts, and he had made it known to his cabinet office bosses that he missed the cut and thrust of big stories and would be interested if an opportunity arose. In acting as a government press handler on a major event, and as a result, he was seconded for the Foreign Office to come out to Portugal to handle our media liaison as part of their consular support for us. Jerry hit it off with Clarence straight away. He was also struck very quickly by Clarence's professionalism and expertise in dealing with the media. Jerry wanted to go to Rothley to see the thousands of messages, flowers, and cuddly toys that had been left for Madeline in the centre of the village. Clarence sprang into action immediately. Apparently, within seconds, he was on the phone to the police and talking to the media on the ground about how this could be arranged to give Jerry some space and at that time allowed the press access to his visit. Jerry was able to go and look at the mountain of cards, notes and gifts without intrusion. He was incredibly touched to see a message from one of Madeline's best friends from nursery, who had recently moved to Yorkshire. I know how difficult this was for him. He told me how he struggled to contain his emotions and had only just held it together. The tears did start to flow, however, when he bumped into the landlady of our local pub. This was par for the course for months afterwards. Whenever we met any friends for the first time since Madeline's abduction, we began to relive what had happened to us all over again and invariably broke down. Back in Praia de Lou that Monday evening, I went round to Fiona and David's apartment. David fetched an Indian takeaway, but I was too upset to eat much. While I was on the phone talking, or rather crying to Jerry in Leicestershire, there was a knock on the door. We were slightly alarmed. It was almost midnight, and when I saw Sandy standing there with two GNR officers, I began to panic. The officers told me that outside were a lady and her husband who had travelled a long distance to give me some important information. Straight away, I went with Sandy and the two officers to their mobile police unit, parked at the front of the apartments. This couple were waiting inside. Having no idea what they were going to say to me, to start with, I was anxious and at the same time trying to rein in my hopes that this might represent a breakthrough. 30 minutes later, having had a crystal waved about in my face, I could feel the hysteria building up inside me. I could see from his expression that Sandy was sitting there thinking, what is this mumbo jumbo? And struggling to keep a straight face. There was no way in a million years something like this was going to bring Madeline back. How had the police allowed such a situation to arise? I was tired and I'd been frightened half to death. But crazy as this was, these people probably meant well, and I didn't want to offend them. In the early weeks, I gave my fullest attention to all information passed on to us, including reports from every psychic, medium, dowser, diviner, visionary, and dreamer, you name it, though I'd never in my life before had dealing with mystics of any description. There were a couple of visionary experiences in particular I took very seriously. One of them had come through prayer, which at the time gave it even greater credibility in my eyes. I begged the police to look into these. They were very sceptical, to put it mildly, but now any police officer reading this will no doubt be smiling ruefully or shaking his or her head. Whatever may psychics, medium, doubters, diviners, visionaries, and dreamers tell you about helping the police with investigations, most officers won't have anything to do with them. For several months, we invested some time and even resources into following up reports by some of the thousands of psychics who have contacted us. Time and resources that would have been, with hindsight, have been better used in more orthodox investigative words. Much of the information was received and still received and extremely vague. Describing a white house near a deer track is not helpful. There are millions of white houses in the world and millions of deer tracks. A few years down the line, my experience has turned me from open-minded into confirmed skeptic, sometimes a very resentful skeptic. Well, they can't be all right, can they? Madeline can't be in 1,000 different locations. Even after Jerry and I decided enough was enough, family and friends have felt obliged to pursue information. This have found its way to them, occasionally travelling overseas at their own expense, just in case. Just in case, this is at the core of what I find most upsetting about visions of the psychics. In our desperation to find Madeline, we are extremely vulnerable, and in our position, it's very difficult to ignore any information. Even though Jerry and I aren't scientists by inclination of profession, we still get reeled in. In some letters, a shifting of responsibility laced with emotional blackmail comes into play. Well, it's up to you now, psychic trace. I've done my bit, thus discharging what they feel is their duty to Madeline. Some have gone a step further and added, I suppose it depends how much you want to find your daughter. Having said this, I don't mean to sound critical of an ungrateful to the majority of psychics, whom I'm sure pass on their reports with the best of motives. But as in this case, in any group of people, there are some who perhaps do so in order to feel important or involved of others, and of course, who are simply looking for publicity. What I am trying to emphasize is the emotional pressure all this information can have on the recipient. Also invariable, it is helpful. Sometimes it saps our time and our energy and leaves us feeling wretched. And that in turn can hamper our search for Madeline. So over the years, I have learned how to deal with it. If it doesn't have close to 100% credibility, it goes into the lowest priority action pile. We need to protect ourselves too. Tuesday, the 22nd of May, 2007. Fiona, David and the girls left Praia de Lou at 6:30 a.m. It was hard for me and probably even harder for them. I know how badly they wanted to be here for us, helping in whatever way they could to try and make our existence a tiny bit easier. But they had jobs to go back to, and they needed to restore some normality to their lives. It was some time before my magnitude of chasm that divided us from our holiday group became fully apparent to me. While Fiona, who was closest to me and has always remained such a wonderful support, she probably the most deeply affected, like the others, she had to move on, whereas we would always remain in limbo until Madeline was found, or until we learned the truth about what had happened to her. It wasn't that I envied our friends their contentment. It was simply a harsh fact that while they would increasingly be able to a degree to set this terrible event apart and carry on with their daily lives, we couldn't. For us, there was no question of leaving Glue. Wherever Madeline was now, this was the last place we had seen her, held her, talked to her, and it would have been tantamount to leave her here when we went home. We vowed it would be as our family of 5. At lunchtime, Jerry arrived back in Praia de Luz with Clarence. My first impressions of Clarence were good. He was very friendly and knowledgeable, and most importantly, he seemed genuinely concerned about Madeline. It was clear that to him, this was not just about a challenging segment. He and Jerry had chatted non-stop during the 2.5-hour flight to Faro. When Jerry had told Clarence about Jane Tanner's sighting, he was astounded that this still hadn't been made public. We decided we would really push the police to release the critical piece of information in the hope of identifying this man and child. My cousin Anne-Marie also joined us today. It was great to have her here. She is intelligent and practical, but fun and easygoing with it. As a child, I'd spent every summer together with Anne and her brothers on the Isle of Man, and we've always been very close. She and Michael were incredible, coming and going in relays with their spells in Portugal, sometimes overlapping so that they were both with us at some time. Many people, especially the local Portuguese, had suggested we would benefit from visiting the shrine of Fatima, a notable place of worship for Roman Catholics that draws over 6 million pilgrims a year. Although I was aware of the shrine and of the Marian apparitions to 3 shepherd children there in 1917, I didn't know a great deal about it. The more I learned, the keener I became to make the trip. We'd arranged to go to Fatima the following day, our 20th day without Madeline. So part of Tuesday afternoon was spent preparing for that. In the evening, Jerry's sister Phil flew in from Glasgow. It was so good to see her. From the first hours after Madeline's disappearance, Phil had been there at our home, coordinating family, friends, and other helpers, and the media and campaigning tirelessly. We all had dinner together. I was struck that right now by how united the two sides of our family had become in such a short space of time. They seemed to be merging into one, and what an amazingly strong and loving alliance it was. It was hard to consider myself lucky. It still is. But without doubt, all of us, Jerry, myself, Madeline, Sean, and Mally, are blessed to be part of such a lovely family. Wednesday, the 23rd of May, was Clarence's first full day in Portugal as our media liaison and spokesperson, and it was going to be one of which his assistance would be essential. He killed for me mentioning this, but he managed to oversleep. To be fair, it was a particularly early start as we had the 250-mile journey to Fatima ahead of us. When our car and driver arrived, a knock on the door summoned a somewhat dishevelled and bleary-eyed Clarence. "Oh, right, oops," he said. "I'll be with you in a minute." And he was as good as his word. In no time at all, he was on parade and in firefighting mode, which I have to say he does impressively as well. Clarence is a force of nature. He is always organising something, always on the phone to somebody, and when he disembarks from a plane after the shortest of flights and switched on his phones, he'd find 50 texts and 50 missed calls or voicemails. My desire to go to Fatima had been increasingly steady over the preceding few days. As we neared our destination, I was filled with nervous anticipation and a peculiar excitement. Seconds before we arrived, Jerry received a phone call from Gordon Brown. After their conversation, Jerry relayed his message of support and encouragement to me, commenting on the marked empathy and sincerity in Mr. Brown's voice. At the shrine, the media presence was as heavy and intense as we had known it so far. Yet somehow, on this day and in this place, I was able to ignore the huge camera lenses barely a couple of centimeters from my face, as if they were not there at all. I was equally oblivious to the swarms of other pilgrims. I only remember feeling drawn in and captivated by the beauty of the shrine. Walking through the central plaza, a potent sense of calm and hope descended on me. The vast open space triggered a feeling of freedom and a strange but pleasant temporary weightlessness. The bells in the basilica began to ring out Immaculate Mary. Almost instantly, a tight knot developed in my stomach. My heart began to race, and I started to cry. I could see Mitchell and me standing in our classroom, aged 6 or 7, singing all the verses of the Immaculate Mary. I thought of Michelle and of the long and nourishing friendship we shared. I ached for Madeline to have her best friends like Michelle. I ached for her to be given that opportunity. Please, God, let it be so. During the couple of hours we spent at the shrine, we were able to attend one of the masses being celebrated and were also allowed some time to pray privately in one of the small chapels. Before leaving, we lit 5 candles outside the chapel of apparitions, one for each member of our family. I kissed Madeline's candle and prayed with all my heart that Our Lady of Fatima would keep her arms safely around our daughter. As we made our way back to our car, many well-wishers, most of them Portuguese, embraced us and squeezed our hands tightly. The sincerity of their desire for us to be reunited with Madeline was unquestionable. We received various gifts we still treasure to this day, including a child's set of wooden rosary beads, which remains around Cuddle Cat's neck. The strength and encouragement we drew from this incredible demonstration of solidarity and compassion was immense. That night, I wrote a few words in my journal, summoning up our visit to Fatima. Not a bad place to begin. From this point on, I began to make regular entries at night or in odd moments during the day. It was with our spirits renewed then that we attended our first informal meeting with the Portuguese police. In response to our pleas, they had had a long last agreed to see us at the British consulate. To say we were grateful to be given this special treatment, as it would be described by the Portuguese media, is a huge understatement. It was 24th of May, 3 whole weeks since Madeline had been taken, and to our huge relief, the next day the police finally released Jane's description of the man who would, in all probability, carry Madeline away. The officers we met on that occasion and will continue to meet regularly were the 2 men ultimately in charge of the investigation. Oh God, I can't say that name, but he's the chief of the Algarve police based in Faro. We had encounters at the police station in Portimao on the day after Madeline's abduction. The other was the head of the Banditismo in London, the DCCB, the equivalent of the serious organised crime agency, dealt with gang crime. Neither man spoke English, so an interpreter was always present, usually Angela Morado, the British proconsul. Encarnacio was 6 years of age at the time. He was quiet and certainly the less forthcoming of the 2. He appeared to be what you might call old school. Indeed, we learned later that he had joined the police in 1973, a year before the dictatorship was overthrown. It took us a while to warm to him, although we did feel that our rapport with him improved slightly in the course of subsequent meetings. It's probably fair to say that neither Jerry nor I ever felt entirely comfortable with him. Luis Neves was a totally different character. He was our age and had a son who was the same age. Hang on, did I say that? But that was 6. Oh, he was 60 years of age, that fella, not 6. Not 6. Oh, God, see what I mean? Anyway, this fella, He was our age and had a son who was the same age or maybe just a little older than Madeline. He seemed intelligent, personable and strong, open to suggestions and new ideas. My initial impression of him were all positive. I wrote in my diary that night, a good fella, on the ball, humanitarian, sensitive. We felt relaxed with Neb. What? Oh God, how do you tell me how you pronounce this? Because it's probably going to come in this book loads of times. Neves. Neves. How do I pronounce that, Martin? Neves. Neves. No idea. Well, anyway, Nebes. Is that right, Pink? Nebs. You talking to me, Pink, or you talking to someone else? Nebs. Okay. Let's say Nebs then. We felt very, very relaxed with Nebs, and he and Jerry seemed to get on well. He was quite tactile and would greet us warmly, often patting Jerry on the back or giving him a brotherly hug or a little punch on the arm. As Jerry churned out suggestions and strategies, he would joke about how my husband would make a great detective. We also became quite friendly with Ricardo Paeva, one of the detectives based on Port Mayo. Because he spoke good English, he was drafted in as the police liaison officer for Jerry and me, and as a result, we spent a fair amount of time with him. He came to our apartment at the Ocean Club on several occasions. My apology for the mugs of instant coffee we were always handing him, because it became a bit of a standing joke. I am sure the Portuguese hate what the British call coffee. Ricardo was probably in his early 30s and married with a son the same age as Sean and Amali. Both Jerry and I thought he seemed a decent enough guy, quiet but pleasant. I don't think I was naive in believing that we built up a good and friendly relationship with these officers over the coming months, although subsequent events have certainly made me question this judgment. We would have 8 of these informal meetings, one approximately every 7 to 10 days, and the crumbs Encarcio and Nebs gave us were meat and drink to me. They made me feel them, at least something was happening, even if I cannot be sure now just how much of what we were told was true. I longed for the meeting dates to come round. They gave me something to look forward to and somehow brought me a tiny bit closer to Madeline. But while they were better than nothing, they never repaid my hopes for them. Lewis and Guillermino usually volunteered little, but would respond quite candidly to direct questions. We were often surprised at the detail they were prepared to share with us. In fact, the British police once suggested that we might be better off putting any questions or requests directly to the police, as we seemed to have more influence with them than they did. The 2 officers talked openly about Robert Murat, who remained at on Guido, and drip-fed us snippets of evidence linking him to Madeline's disappearance. Not enough, apparently, to arrest and charge him. In some ways, I wish they hadn't done this. It served only to colour my judgment of Murat. They told us, for example, about a newspaper clipping they seized from his house, an article entitled "Lock Up Your Daughters," which claimed that Casanova had been a paedophile. It made us shudder. Back then, we feared everything and perhaps understandably leapt to the worst conclusions without pausing to consider innocent explanations. Nothing we were told by the police indicated that Murat took Madeline or was in any way involved in her abduction. We had no context for the disconnected pieces of information Nebs and Encarcio to pass on to us, which we assumed were all they were allowed to reveal. In isolation, these suggested it was possible Murat was linked in some way to the events of the 3rd of May. And for a long time, we didn't know what to think. Once we fell victim to ourselves, vagaries of the Portuguese police system, we soon discovered how easy it was for 2 and 2 to be put together and to make 5. When I read through the police files in microscopic detail after their release to the public in 2008, I found nothing to implicate Murat. It is clear that the police never had any credible case against him. His arguido status was eventually lifted. No charges were ever brought, and any apparent evidence they gathered was no more than circumstantial. Several witnesses, including Fiona, Russ, and Rachel, reported seeing Murat near our apartment on the night Madeline vanished. He has always categorically denied being there, and his mother confirmed that he was at home all evening. On Friday, the 25th of May, the day after our first meeting with Nebs and Encarnacio, who gave us our first sit-down interviews to the media in response to the incessant requests for an opportunity to speak to us, Sherry and Clarence had prepared for this event. Sherry had now had to leave us, but had passed on the baton to Clarence, along with Hannah Gardner of the Association of Chief of Police, who was helping us as a kind of police media liaison officer. They had held the press at bay until Jerry and I felt strong enough to handle it. The fact that so far the public had not heard from us directly, other than in our brief statements, and appealed together with the massive appetite for the story and the scarcity of information available from the police, made these interviews very significant. I have to say that the prospect of doing them filled me with dread. Before I faced the press, Anne-Marie and I went along briefly to a lunch in Lego to mark International Missing Children Day. A month before, I'd never even heard of ICMD, which encourages people around the world to remember all the missing children and their families and to express their solidarity with them. Now, of course, the date is engraved on my brain. We have been invited to this lunch by Susan, the wife of Haynes Hubbard, the new Anglican minister in Praia de Leu. The Hubbards had come to Portugal from Canada 3 days after Madeline's abduction, and this was the first time I had met Susan. She was to become a very close friend and has been a real support to me ever since. I had to be back to meet Jerry for the interviews at 3 p.m. When we arrived, I was asked by one of the television people if I could change my top, as the colour wouldn't work well on camera. I'd already been pretty bemused by all the instructions I received beforehand. I'm sure these are very useful if you're going on TV to present a programme or take part in a chat show, but to me this seems insensitive, almost offensive. Surely in the circumstances, what Jerry and I had to say mattered more than how we dressed and the overall look of the media package. We did a whole lot of interviews, one after the other: Sky, BBC, ITV, the Press Association, Portuguese Television, and GMTV. In spite of my aversion to speaking in public and the anxiety it caused me, everything went much more smoothly and felt easier, or at least less awful, than I'd expected. Each interviewer asked us about our decision to leave the children alone in our apartment while we ate. All we could do was answer this honestly over and over again, as we've had to do on numerous occasions since. We love our children. We would never knowingly put them at risk. We were naive. It was the biggest misjudgment of our lives. We regretted it bitterly, and we have to live with the guilt we felt forever. But at the same time, we knew that person who had taken Madeline was the real criminal, and he remained free and forgotten. It was a huge relief when it was all over. But in truth, it was just the beginning. I had no idea then of quite how many interviews we would be required to do in the weeks, months, and years to come. In the meantime, hope and comfort were at hand from an unexpected source. It was on Sunday, the 27th of May, that Clarence first mentioned the possibility that we might be invited to the Vatican, or accepted there, to meet Pope Benedict. The relevant people in Rome, he told us, had already been making the necessary preparations. I didn't dwell on whether this was unprecedented, as it was later described, or even unusual. I just remember thinking how important and wonderful this would be for Madeline. For a Catholic, meeting the Pope is about as close as you can get to meeting God. Well, I got blessed by the Pope, people. I got blessed on my life on a plane. I did. So it's as close as you can get to meeting God. And we certainly needed his help. I truly believe that if I was able to speak to the Pope, my pleas for Madeline's safe return would be channeled more efficiently and effectively to heaven. I also believe that this meeting might lead to many more Catholics offering prayers for Madeline. Surely, if God received a bombardment like this, Madeline would be returned to us. Even so, I can say hand on heart that at this time I never thought our encounter with the Pope would be such a big news. And although I was of course aware of the huge public interest Madeline's plight contained to generate, I was still in my own little bubble, detached to some extent from the outside world, and this proposed journey to Rome felt like a necessity rather than a privilege. To me, it was the Church's way of supporting a fellow child of God, a humane and compassionate gesture. Jerry, on the other hand, was able to see the wider picture, the massive global awareness it would bring, in addition to the spiritual benefits for our family. Our audience with Pope Benedict as part of the public session at St. Peter's was confirmed the following day and scheduled for Wednesday, the 30th of May. Sir Philip Green kindly offered us to use his private jet, but what would people say? That we were hobnobbing with celebrities and swanning around in the lap of luxury while our daughter was suffering. The unpleasant scrutiny we were under was soon to become an integral part of our lives, whether we liked it or not. In the end, we accepted Sir Philip's offer for logistical and emotional reasons. The key factor was that it would dramatically reduce the periods of time we need to spend away from Amali and Sean. Not for the last time we agreed to a small group of UK and Portuguese journalists and photographers travelling with us on the plane. To this day, I wonder why on earth we did. We would have been under some gentle and well-meaning pressure from Clarence, a journalist himself, until fairly recently, who was working so closely with the media that he was keen to maintain a friendly relationship with them. I know it's the way the politicians do things, but our situation was rather different. Obviously, the press were going anyway, and travelling with us made their lives much easier, but it meant we couldn't relax or let our guards down for the fear that something we said or did would turn up in the papers, spun to suit a particular story. From time to time, inevitably, we forgot that while on a personal level, some of the journalists were lovely to us. They were there to do a job. We were informed that we would need to wear dark suits to meet the Pope. Clothes again. On the Tuesday morning, Jerry and I went to a shopping centre to buy something appropriate. As a woman who could not yet enjoy a snack and a coffee without feeling guilty, I could not get my head around this. My daughter was missing, and here we were shopping. It was unthinkable. I moved randomly from rack to rack, from shop to shop, the tears rolling down my face. I longed for it all to go away. Leaving Sean and Amali behind in Portugal a few hours later was even worse. I just wanted to cling to them forever. We faced a dilemma several times as we travelled abroad in the weeks to come. Could we take them? What would be fairer on them? I have no doubt that we did the right thing. It would have been nice for us to have the twins with us, their comforting cuddles on tap. But it would have been selfish, being shuffled from meeting to meeting, buffeted by crowds and dazzled by flashbulbs was never going to be fun for them. In Praia de Luz, they were in the care of loving family and friends and could play in comfort surroundings to their little heart's content. There was no contest really, not for a pair of 2-year-olds. I've never been great at takeoffs and landings. In recent years, I'd taken to squeezing Jerry's hand tightly until we were safely in the air or back down on the ground in one piece. Since Madeline was taken, that anxiety had given way to something else, an aching sadness somewhere deep down. It had always seemed wrong to be going anywhere or returning from anywhere without her. It's such an awful feeling that nowadays I'd rather not fly at all, unless it's absolutely unavoidable. I'm just going to have a swig of coffee. Done. It's okay. We were warmly welcomed at the airport in Rome by Francis Campbell, the ambassador to the Holy See, and Monsignor Charlie Baines, who, like Jerry, was from Glasgow. Along with several representatives of the British consulate, we were taken to the ambassador's residence, where we were to spend the night. That evening holds fond memories for both of us. Francis, Charlie, and Pat, the housekeeper and social secretary, were absolutely lovely to us and made us feel like family. They provided a wonderful dinner and great conversation. Francis is an amazing storyteller and must be one of the most talented impressionists I have ever come across. Listening to him, I experienced the strangest sensation. I realized that for the first time in nearly a month, I was laughing. Not what I anticipated at all. As bizarre and inappropriate as laughter felt, it helped both Jerry and me to relax and gave us a boost we sorely needed. We couldn't face much breakfast the following morning, though. However, reality kicked in again. Madeline was missing, and we were going to meet the Pope. I was a bag of nerves. We left for St. Peter's at around 9 o'clock. Picking up Charlie en route, on arrival, we were taken to our seats in the prima fila by the Vatican staff. Within minutes, the black clouds that had been looming overhead gave way to bright skies. The heat of the sun was uplifting, a good omen perhaps. The only problem now was that we were sitting directly in its blazing rays. Dressed in dark suits, very stressed and anxious, and growing hotter all the time. Charlie, sitting behind us very sweetly, held a parasol over our heads. Amid an almost carnival atmosphere sat Jerry and I, at the front, vulnerable and sombre. For an hour and a half following the Pope's arrival, there were addresses in different languages, prayers, singings, and blessings. Jerry's intolerance of the heat and his building apprehension edged him to the brink of fainting. Thankfully, he just managed to hang on. It was shortly after midday by the time Pope Benedict started to move along to the prima fila to greet people. He was much smaller than I had imagined, a quiet and gentle man. I could feel my heart pounding. This was the moment, Madeline's moment. The festival going on around me suddenly receded, the sights and sounds fading away, and I was aware of nothing and nobody but myself, Jerry, Madeline, and the Pope. He seemed about to turn back when one of his aides directed us to him. His eyes widened, and it was evident that he knew who we were and recognized our sorrow. It was a brief but intense encounter. I said what I had planned and needed to say. Nothing earth-shattering. I simply thanked him for allowing us to be there and asked him to pray for Madeline's safe return. He held our hands and assured us that he would keep Madeline, our families, and ourselves in his prayers. I gave him a photograph of her. I'd intended him to keep it, but he insisted he placed his palm softly over it and blessed Madeline before handing it back to us. In a minute, perhaps less, it was over, and yet we felt well accomplished, something enormous for Madeline. Clarence, who had been sitting behind us with Francis and Charlie, told me a little later that during the proceedings, a butterfly had landed on the ribbon in my hair. It flew off, only to return a short while later, this time a lightening on the lapel of my jacket. At the time, we all wondered whether it was a sign, a harbinger of good news. Remembering now makes me sad. Back then, we still had hope. Seeing omens and sunlight and butterflies. It's not that we don't have hope anymore. Of course we do. We'll always have hope as long as we remain in this limbo. It's just that it feels so far away. Everything feels far away. Our last moment with Madeline, any future moments with Madeline, these moments are like the pot of gold at the end of a perpetually extending rainbow. They're there, but still just beyond our reach. It was so lovely to see Sean and Amali when we returned to Praia de Lou. True to form, they appeared quite unfazed by our absence. Sean seemed more eager to tell us about a naughty doggy who'd weed on their sandcastle than to know where we'd been. After feast comes famine, they say, and that evening, as the euphoria subsided, my spirits took a plunge. Low point tonight. Despairing about the lack of information makes it appear like the police haven't got a clue. 4 weeks tomorrow since Madeline was taken. 4 weeks since we've seen our special little girl. Not sure we'll see it again, but I'm aware that we need to stay hopeful and strong. Love you so much, Madeline. Need you back. On we press with our campaign to spread the word across Europe. We decided it would further our course to visit one or two key countries ourselves and to appeal personally to their people for help. Seeking assistance and advice from politicians and children's charities, we wanted to reach some of hundreds of potential witnesses from elsewhere on the continent who might have been on holiday in the Algarve around the time of Madeline's disappearance. Perhaps even more importantly, it was quite possible that Madeline was in another country now. Had anybody noticed a little girl who seemed out of place or somebody behaving suspiciously? We chose Spain first as it was so close to Portugal. After the British and Irish, most other visitors to the Algarve are German or Dutch. So we added Berlin and Amsterdam to the itinerary. Finally, we felt we needed to venture beyond Europe to North Africa. Morocco was so easily accessible from Praia de Lou. Ferries make the 35-minute crossing from Tarifa in Spain to Tangiers several times a day. That there was a distant possibility Madeline could have been taken there. The Foreign Office helped us by arranging consular assistance in all these countries. Now that it looked as if we were going to be based in Praia de Lou for the long haul, with frequent journeys to airports and regular meetings set up with the police at the British consulate in Portimao, we decided it would be easier if we had our own car. We duly taken possession of a rented Renault Scenic on the 27th of May. We left for Madrid on Thursday, the 31st of May. Taking a flight from Lisbon Airport, again, it was horrible leaving Sean and Amali. As well as the huge central agony of missing and fearing for Madeline, there was lots of other heartaches, and I resented being put in position of having to make choices like this. I cursed the person who had brought such pain and suffering to our family. Our only comfort with these essential separations seemed to affect Jerry and me far more than they did the twins. At the check-in desks at Lisbon Airport, I looked around for pictures of Madeline, and I couldn't see a single one. I was dismayed. I talked to one of the staff who explained that there were some notices pinned up behind a few desks. The tears pricked my eyes again. This just wasn't enough. Lisbon turns out to be one of the few European airports we visited that wasn't plastered with Madeline's image. Poor Phil almost got herself arrested later trying to rectify this by putting up some of our posters. The Portuguese, it seemed, took a less liberal view of flight posting than the encountered by our supporters elsewhere. Sitting in an airport cafe, I couldn't avoid casting my eyes over the people rushing for planes or pushing trolleys backwards and forwards aimlessly. Where were they going? Did they not know a little girl had been stolen? How could they take a holiday or a business trip to talk in meetings about projected sales figures when Madeline was missing? Not for the first time, and certainly not for the last, I had an overwhelming urge to shout stop. everybody stop. It's so hard to accept that, but everyone else, life goes on. But of course it does. We were met at Madrid airport by several British embassy staff, a liaison officer and 2 press officers, as well as a crowd of journalists and photographers. And taken to the hotel we were to spend the night, Clarence briefed Jerry and me about the meeting and press conferences arranged for the next day, and then we went up to our room to get some rest. A bit tearful again tonight. It's getting harder to black out the bad thoughts. That's what she's writing in a journal, guys. After a troubled night, we got up, dressed, and went down to breakfast. I couldn't focus on the day ahead and what we were trying to accomplish. Every now and again, by taking a few deep breaths and giving myself a firm talking to, I gained a little control, only to collapse minutes later into a blubbering wreck. I was so angry with myself. Stop crying. Just stop. You have to help your daughter. You will achieve nothing if you spend the whole day crying and wallowing in your grief. But try to snap out of it when every thought, every action, every breath is polluted by anguish. It's easier said than done. As I continued to sniffle over my untouched cup of tea, Jerry said, Kate, you don't have to do this. We don't have to do any of it. These meetings can be cancelled quite easily. I know he meant it, but I also knew that I'd persecute myself later if I pulled out. Once we'd been introduced to the British ambassador to Spain, the British consul for Madrid, and a lady from the Justice and Home Affairs Department, we were scheduled to talk to representatives of 3 Spanish non-governmental organisations, NGOs, working with missing and exploited children. We'd both been a little nervous about this meeting, conscious of the fact that there were so many children abducted around the world whose plight hadn't been given anything like the publicity Madeline had. We were concerned that this might have caused some resentment. We couldn't have been more wrong. The reception we were given by the NGOs was nothing but appreciative. The goodness you were doing this, they said. You were so grateful to you for drawing attention to the whole issue of child abduction and exploitation. We listened for an hour while they explained to us the extent of the problem in Spain and the difficulties they faced. While the situation had improved slightly, possession of child pornography, for example, have finally been classified as a criminal offence in Spain a couple of years before, which it still has, not incidentally, in many other nations. They felt that many cases of child sexual abuse, pornography, and trafficking were still being swept under the carpet. The authorities and even the general population seemed unwillingly to acknowledge that this kind of thing happened in their country. As empathetic as the NGO representatives were with every horrendous fact and statistic they shared with us, I became wobblier and wobblier. Afterwards, I took refuge in the ladies' room as the next deluge of tears gushed forth. Gripping the rim of the wash basin, I glanced at the red, swollen eyes and blotchy face looking back at me in the mirror. Come on, Kate. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And again, nice and slow. Calm down, calm down. I soaked some tissues in cold water and I pressed them against my eyes and cheeks, then performed a few eye-widening exercises in an attempt to look vaguely human. Taking a final deep breath with my mind refocused, I joined Jerry and Clarence and we made our way to the press conference that had been arranged, followed by a few short interviews. In the afternoon, we met Senor Rubalcaba, the Spanish Interior Minister. He listened attentively and his manner was gentle and sympathetic. He showed us the case file that had already been opened for Madeline, which instantly brought us both some reassurance. Oh my God, can you hear the dog snoring? There are 2 things I remember Senor Rebecca saying to us. We are treating Madeline as if she is one of our own. And as time moves on, people forget. Please feel free to come and knock at my door at any point to remind me. And of course, I've no idea how genuine either statement was but he certainly seemed sincere, and we were grateful and encouraged. As yet another day draws to a close, and you are no nearer to finding your missing child, such fleeting flashes of optimism can disappear very quickly. That evening, hang on a minute, Alex listening to something and laughing. As yet another age draws to a close, and you are no nearer to finding your missing child, such fleeting flashes of optimism can disappear very quickly. That evening, as we flew back to Portugal, my mood was no doubt influenced by what we'd heard from the NGOs. Quite upset on the way home. Can't stop thinking about Madeline, her fear and her pain. Dark thoughts have been creeping in a lot this week. How can I carry on, knowing that her life may have ended like this? Saturday, 2nd of June. It wasn't unusual for investigative or campaign issues to eat into our family days, and this was one of those occasions. Before we took the children out to Prior Day Rocha Beach, Jerry needed to catch up with the emails that he had accumulated while we'd been in Madrid, and I had a letter I wanted to write to J.K. Rowling a couple of weeks earlier. A friend had mentioned to me that the author had a new Harry Potter story coming out in July and suggested I got in touch to see whether she could do something to raise awareness around the launch of her book. July, I'd said, July. Surely Madeline would be back by then. I was panic-stricken at the idea that she might not, that my friend could imagine she might not. I simply couldn't think that way. I needed Madeline home tomorrow. But here I was several weeks later writing my letter to J.K. Rowling. How on earth have I survived this long? I wondered. It is quite staggering how much stress the human mind and body can endure and still function on some level. You simply can't see how it's possible that you are still alive, and yet there you are, still breathing, speaking, and moving. I clung tightly to the hope that whatever help J.K. Rowling might be able to offer in a month's time when it came to it, it wouldn't be needed. It wasn't enough to prevent me from sliding down the slippery slope for the rest of the day. Crying in bed again, can't help it. The thoughts of Madeline, fear and pain tears me apart. The thoughts of paedophile makes me want to rip my skin off. Surely these people, along with psychopaths, are not normal human beings. I've never been in favour of the death penalty, but these people should be kept in a secure location of some description. I don't mind if it's in nice surroundings, but certainly, in the case of paedophiles, away all the time from any contact with children. In the event, J.K. Rowling's support was needed and greatly appreciated. When Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was published on the 21st of July, it was distributed with a new poster of Madeline, which she asked all retailers to display. In the following evening, June the 3rd, exactly a month after Madeline's abduction, that Jerry and I opened up a little more to each other and shared some of the thoughts and anxieties that had been quietly tormenting us both. Thoughts and anxieties that perhaps we hadn't felt able or ready to voice up to now. We'd been sitting alone at the table, working at our computers. It was quiet and the lights were low. Though I can't remember how the conversation started, I'm glad it did. We talked through guilt we felt about not having been in the apartment with the children, about having left the patio doors unlocked, how we found it hard to comprehend that we could have been so naive. We acknowledged that possibility that Madeline might be no longer alive, the possibility that we might never find out what has happened to her. Would we ever be able to return to our home? We had all shared with her. Maybe we should move elsewhere, but where? We discussed the need we felt to do our utmost to prevent this from happening to another child, to prevent another family from having to go through what we were going through. We had to ensure that something positive for someone, even if it wasn't for us, came out of this horrific experience. For me, the honest exposure of this berry poison was like lancing a boil. admitting these secret fears and concerns, bringing them out in the open, and sharing them with the only other person who was persecuted in the same way, made them suddenly feel a little easier to understand and to manage. Strengthened and comforted, I fell asleep that night more peacefully than I had in many days. At the beginning of June, Jerry had a call from the Director of Communications at the Foreign Office. They were concerned in the government, he said, that Clarence was becoming the story. I am not quite sure what he meant by this. Clarence was certainly a visible presence, and perhaps his open, available style prevented him from being quite as anonymous as the Foreign Office would have liked. Perhaps it had drawn attention to the fact that they were still providing us with a media spokesman and a spokesperson, and questions were being asked. It had been a month since Madeline's disappearance, so maybe they were simply trying to gently to prompt us into appointing somebody of our own to help us. Whatever the case, it was suggested to Jerry that we should use Madeline's fund to employ someone to replace Clarence once our campaign visits were complete. Reluctantly, Jerry agreed. We honestly hadn't bargained for having to pay a salary for media liaison out of the fund, which we'd emphasised, but being primarily meeting costs related directly to the search for Madeline, it hadn't occurred to us that we'd still be needing this kind of help a month down the line. With no way of knowing how long this would continue, we had no idea how long the money would last. On Monday, 4th June, we recorded an appeal to be screened the following evening on Crime Watch, the long-running BBC programme that has a good track record in helping the police to solve crimes using information supplied by the public. Our appeal was aimed in particular at any British holidaymakers who had been in the Algarve at the time of Madeline's abduction. Frustratingly, Crime Watch was not allowed to film a reconstruction of this abduction. This was something we had wanted from the beginning, in the hope that it would encourage potential witnesses to come forward. In Britain, the police often broadcast reconstructions through programmes like Crime Watch and news channels, but we were told that this was not possible in either Portugal or British because of the judicial secrecy law. We were able to show a pair of pyjamas like Madeline's on the programme, which was particularly important since at the time it had been incorrectly stated in some press reports that her pyjamas were white. Wednesday, 6th of June. Today we left on our campaign to visit Berlin and Amsterdam. With this three-leg trip, we've been offered the use of a plane by one of the directors of NetJets, a company that sells fractional jet ownership, a bit like a holiday home timeshare, only with planes, which we accepted gratefully for the same reasons as we decided to accept Sir Philip Green's help to get us to Rome. Again, a small press contingent travelled with us. Our schedule in Berlin looked a bit daunting, but in the event, everything ran incredibly smoothly. Admirable German efficiency. After a television interview, we were off to meet the ambassador, Peter Torrey, a nice man with 3 daughters of his own. Next came that infamous press conference. Infamous is that produced such outrage in the British press and public. Our reaction was far less dramatic, regardless of headlines such as McCann's appalled by newsgirl's slay in the Mirror. The fuss began when Sabine Mueller from German radio asked us, how do you feel about the fact that more and more people seem to be pointing the finger at you, saying that the way you behave is not the way people would normally behave when their child is abducted, and they seem to imply that you might have something to do with it. In spite of the gasps and restless shuffling around the room, at first I failed to pick up on her last 8 words. I was still concentrating on the first part of her question, which related to criticism there. In relation to criticism, there had been our participation in the European campaign to find our daughter. Some commentators seemed to be very preoccupied by how we were able to cope with meetings and greeting politicians, NGOs, and news crews without breaking down at all, as if managing to display a modicum of calm and control in public meant there must be something wrong with us. My ability to function on any level with Madeline missing, albeit on autopilot, is something I've always found difficult to comprehend myself, and I can completely understand why somebody who hasn't walked in our shoes might find it weird. I responded by saying I thought these critics were in very small minority. It was only after Jerry stately affirmed there is absolutely no way Case and I are involved in this abduction that the second part of her question caught up with me. I never heard before that anyone considered us suspects in this, he went on, and the Portuguese police certainly don't. Honest to God, I almost want to pat my lovely husband and myself sympathetically on the head or put an arm around us both when I recall how trusting we were back then. To think we could have made comments like this in all confidence and conviction. The fact that we could and did highlight why we were so totally dumbfounded when the tide turned against us 2 months later. We knew we were innocent, and we believed the police knew that too. And despite everything that happened, we still believe that. Our next meeting was with the Deputy Justice Minister, who gave us a document relating to a conference on a child's welfare that had been held in Berlin 2 days previously. Over lunch, I browsed through it. It dealt with the dramatic rise in child pornography and the way the internet had turned the hideous blight on our society into a billion-dollar industry. I couldn't eat a thing. The final encounter of the day was with the Mayor of Berlin, Klaus Weyress. We'd heard that he was a colourful and charismatic man we liked and something of a celebrity in the region. If his popularity and the respect in which he was held by the citizens of Berlin could benefit Madeline, we were more than prepared to have another few hundred photographs taken standing next to him while he appealed for help. With the completion of the formal programme of events, the plan had been to relax for an hour before our departure to Amsterdam at 3 p.m. However, a message was relayed to us from the British police with instructions for us to be taken immediately to the British Embassy. What happened? We had barely got to the words out before the reply came. I'm sorry, we don't know. A wave of nausea immediately teased was she dead? Has she been found? We had been here before and we couldn't believe this was happening all over again. But there we were, holding on to each other in the back of a car, crying, shaking and praying. Please God, let it be good news. Please God, let Madeline be all right. At the embassy, Ambassador Torrey had been joined by David Connolly, an officer from SOCA, the Serious Organised Crime Agency. David told us how sorry he was we had to go through another 20 minutes of suffering and reassured us that nothing terrible had happened. I felt myself breathe again. He explained that the Spanish police had received a call on an Argentinian mobile phone from a man calling himself Walter, who told them he had information about Madeline but would speak only to Jerry or me. The Spanish police conferred with the Portuguese police and both concluded that it might be significant. The Spanish police were going to ring Walter back and arrange for him to talk to us. David warned us that it might be a hoax, but it was equally possible it might be genuine. Perhaps a ransom demand. My heartbeat quickened. I tried to keep a lid on any optimism, knowing how bad the crash would be if this amounted to nothing. But it was incredibly hard to suppress the flicker of hope it had ignited. David briefed Jerry on what would happen. Jerry and I would take the call at the police headquarters in Berlin. He talked Jerry through the questions he would need to ask and how he should respond. As we waited to hear from the Spanish authorities, we were joined by 2 German specialist kidnapped officers. The whole team oozed professionalism and experience, which sustained Jerry and me as the minutes ticked slowly by. At 5 p.m. local time, the Spanish police rang Walter. There was no answer. I was completely gutted. We were given 3 options. We could return to the UK, where it was felt the facilities for dealing with such operations were probably the best. We could stay on in Berlin in case the authorities were able to make contact with Walter, or we could carry on to Amsterdam as planned. After some discussion, we decided that since it now seemed that this was all in probability a crank call, we should press on to Amsterdam. The episode had caused us enough heartache already, and we didn't want it to scupper this important trip as well. If there was any further developments, we could easily be contacted there. An additional complication that the journalists travelling with us were waiting to be told when the plane was going to leave and already began speculating about the reason for the delay. Clarence was being bombarded with questions and had so far managed to feed them without disclosing any sensitive details, but it could only be a matter of time before the press got wind of something. The last thing we needed was another drastic and widely inaccurate story blowing up. In the unlikely event that, hang on, where am I? I've lost that. In the unlikely event Walter's call had been genuine, who knows what effect it might have on any negotiations. As it turned out, that was the last we ever heard of Walter, but it was a good illustration, if anywhere needed, of the inadvisability of allowing the media to fly with us. The NetJets plane eventually took off shortly before 7:30 p.m., several hours later than planned. By then, I was such a nervous wreck that I accepted a restorative gin and tonic. Come to think of it, that might well have been my first drink since Madeline was taken. It helped me relax for a few minutes anyway. On our descent into Schiphol Airport, the sensations that were now becoming familiar returned. The tight throat, the stinging, wet eyes, the heavy dragging feeling in my chest. Oh God, how could this be? Amsterdam held so many happy memories of the years we'd lived here with Madeline. How could we be coming back without her? I'm so sorry, Madeline. I'm so sorry. It was late and Jerry and I were both completely drained by the stress and seesawing emotions of that afternoon. On our arrival in Amsterdam with these profuse apologies, we cancelled a broadcast interview that had been scheduled to take place 2 hours earlier. Unbelievably, the producers were really quite angry. I've learned to accept this kind of insensitive reaction, which we encountered from time to time over the years, mainly with the international press. Some people have become pretty belligerent that they felt we haven't given them what they wanted from us. One guy even threw his mic on the floor in a fit of state, as if news, events, and human interest stories exist solely to save their programme and publications rather than the other way around, as if we and Madeline's situation are there simply as fodder for their airtime or columns. It's disappointing, but we are used to it. It will be pointless to let it get to us. We move on. We did manage a short interview that evening in our hotel room with a nice lady called Eleanor from the Tablet, the weekly Catholic newspaper. This was more like a chat than anything else, and certainly more relaxing than any other media interview we'd done so far. Afterwards, at 10 p.m., 5 of our Amsterdam friends came over to see us. I could hardly bear to let them go. When they hugged me, I knew the most I stepped back to look at them. Their faces would instantly remind me of the days spent together with Madeline. A fresh surge of pain mingled with the comfort brought to me by close friends. We had never expected to be seeing them without Madeline. These were people who had shared her first birthday, a first piece of cake with her. The incomplete reunion made no sense. The next day followed a similar tight-packed format to our visits to Madrid and Berlin. We had meetings with the ambassador, the UK police liaison officer for the KLPD, the Dutch National Police, the Consul General and Government Policy Advisor. We talked to the National Police Coordinator for missing persons. It became apparent very quickly just how much more advanced than many other countries the Netherlands was in dealing with missing children. The systems in place extremely well structured and organised. The fact that they had systems all gave that they head start on much of Europe. We were given books on what to do if your child went missing, and how to deal with the media if your child went missing, unfortunately for us, in Dutch and a little late. Vital sources of information and guidance for families thrown into this terrifying, unknowing territory. We also met Charlotte from Child Focus, an NGO for missing and exploited children in Belgium. After suffering a spate of child abductions and murders in the 1990s, Belgium had set out to tackle these heinous crimes head on. The establishment of Child Focus in 1997 was a part of this strategy. Charlotte told us she was the case manager at Child Focus for Madeline. We were speechless. We couldn't believe there was actually a lady in Belgium working officially on Madeline's behalf. I was so grateful. I burst into tears. I cried at sad news. I cried at heartwarming news. I did a lot of crying. Those who criticised us for appearing too controlled didn't know the half of it. After several interviews for national television and radio, including Opsporing Verzocht, that's a Dutch name, the Dutch equivalent of Crime Watch, we were back on the plane heading for the Algarve. I need a fix of Sean and Amali's beautiful smiles, their funny toddler chatter, their sticky fingers, their baby breath on my face. I had to drag myself away from the twins all too soon. Jerry and I had been invited to a concert, a music marathon for Madeline in Lagos. We were both absolutely exhausted, but we wanted to go to show our gratitude for this demonstration of support and solidarity. The music was fantastic, and it was wonderful to see so many kids taking part, doing their bit for Madeline. Just as we began to flag, 4 young rappers got up on stage. They were so entertaining and so funny that at one point I found myself laughing. It was good and bad at the same time, prompting a confusing concoction of responses. The warmth it brought was tainted by a disgust with myself for even being able to laugh. Was this how life without Madeline was going to be? Would I never again, until the day she came back, be able to laugh in public or feel pure, uncomplicated joy? And now we're at 12, guys. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me see what time it is. Let's see. I can go a bit longer if you want me to. I can go, it's 8:10. I can go till 8:30 if you want me to carry on a couple of more pages. I'll leave that to you to let me know. And I hope that you could understand me okay. And the words that I couldn't make out, you didn't miss. Just having a swig, coffee, and dry as a bone. Oh, God, I needed that. Was it all right, Pink? Do you think I should carry on with a couple of more pages? Oh my God, you think so? Oh, you's all dying to chat, aren't you? Do you want to have a gab for a bit? And I'll shut up. I don't mind, honest to God. Give me mouth a rest. Be good for me jowls. Give them some exercise, might tighten them up a bit. Up to you, Maggie. Oh, do you want me to? I'll leave it then, because I've been doing 2, haven't I? So at least it'll be, we can start from the next chapter then. Maggie, yes, I love you. Talk to me all day. I talk all day. But I just don't want to go on if everyone's fed up listening and they're not really, excuse me, interested. I'll carry on then. Okay, I'll carry on. I'll see how we go. Sunday, the 10th of June. Rabbit Morocco, shortly before leaving for the airport, I made the mistake of reading an article in a Sunday Express that I'd found lying around. A double-page piece, I think illustrated by a photograph of an overcrowded, chaotic market scene about child trading in Morocco. Oh, God. She wrote in her little journal, I can't believe our dear little Madeline has potentially ended up with such a scary, sordid life. Please, God, please, please protect her. She loves us, God. Please bring it back to us. We were lucky we managed to get on a plane to Rabbit at all. Rabbit? What way would I say that? R-A-B-A-T. R-A-B-A-T. I use the word luckily loosely. The jet had broken down and a pre-war propeller plane was drafted to help us out. It was too small to carry all the passengers and had to make a retrain trip to get everyone to Morocco. Flying was hard enough for me now, as it was, and this was scary. The plane, a bare metal tube, was basic. It had about 20 seats and no separate cockpits, no overhead lockers or storage racks, no in-flight service. Thank goodness I'd had that bussy in the airport. No life jackets. I'm probably sounding a bit precious now, but of course it wasn't the absence of small comforts that bothered me. It was the fact that I really didn't feel safe. Still, it must be said that the imagination was in overdrive to start with, and I allowed it to run away with me to the point where I was terrified we were going to die on our way and leave us all our children orphans. Oh God, let me tell you now, I wouldn't have got on that plane. I'd have rather walked. I'd have got a mobility scooter and gone on that. There's no chance you getting me on that plane. It's hard to stay level-headed when you've forgotten what it feels like to be at peace. In the event of our journey was absolutely fine. I remember feeling reassured about the stringency of Morocco's immigration procedures when I was required at the airport to fill in a form stating the reason for my visit, among other things. In truth, it didn't mean a lot, and their security system might be lousy for all I know. I think I just needed to latch on to any positives I could find. Miss Biddy Brett Brooks, the Consul General for the Casablanca, was there to meet us when we landed. She looked and sounded exactly as I'd imagined from her name, very sweet and very English. We went first to a hotel where we had arranged to meet ITN news crew from the UK. They wanted to show us an interview they'd recorded with a Norwegian lady called Mare Ollie. We'd heard about Marie Ollie only 2 days earlier, and on the 9th of May, she'd seen a little girl who looked just like Madeline at a petrol station on the outskirts of Marrakesh. While her husband filled up the tank, Marie had gone into the garage shop to buy some water. She'd noticed a man there hanging around with a blonde child of around 4 who looked pale and tired. Marie had asked the man in English, "Can we see Mummy soon?" To which she replied, "Soon." It wasn't until Marie and her husband were back at their home on the Costa del Sol the next evening that they learned of Madeline's abduction. In ITN's news interview, Marie stated that as soon as she saw Madeline's photograph, she recognised her as the girl she'd seen in Marrakesh and rang the Spanish police straight away. Jerry and I watched the footage with heavy hearts. Not only was it upsetting, it was also deeply concerning from what we could infer. The lead simply hadn't been inadequately followed up. Indeed, a month later, Mary still hadn't been formally interviewed. It was intolerable. This was our daughter's life they were dealing with, not a stolen car or radio. It was pretty late by the time we'd arrived at the ambassador's residence, where we would be spending the night. In the morning, at a meeting with the consular staff, we heard from a British Metropolitan Police, a counter-terrorism liaison and cooperation officer, that Morocco was a police state with excellent networks and intelligence gathering systems. If Madeline was here, she was sure to be found. It was something we'd been told several times during our visit. We talked to the president of the Ligue Marocaine pour la Protection, the Moroccan equivalent of the NSPCC, and visited Touche Passer Mon Enfant, an NGO based on the upper floor of a very dark tenement-like building. Once again, we were astounded and moved by the volume of work being done on Madeline's behalf and by the kindness and advice offered by these lovely people. That day, several senior and powerful figures spent time with us, including the Minister of the Interior, Mr. Ben Moussa, and the Director General of Police, Charky Drace, the police attaché at Tour de Celia, that for these meetings to take place, permission must have been granted by the king himself. Both Mr. Ben Musa and Mr. Gervais retraced the message of the day. We will help you. If Madeline's here, we will find her. En route to visit the Observatoire National, a palace-sponsored child welfare watchdog, a crowd of kids suddenly came into view. There must have been over 100 of them, and they were all holding up posters bearing Madeline's face with the words, "All Morocco children are with you. Madeline's a boy," with the words, "All Moroccan children are with you, Madeline." Above it, and Madeline's back home underneath. Beaming, they chanted in unison, "Madeline, Madeline, Madeline." This welcome was as unexpected as it was overwhelming, and we couldn't help but smile. In fact, I couldn't stop myself smiling. And on this occasion, my tears were happy ones. It was important not just to be touched by their enthusiasm and their unspoiled beauty and innocence. If ever a reminder we're needed of how special, important children are in this world, 1 second in this company of our new little friends will prove it. From the Observatoire National, we learned that the heart of each Moroccan community is not the town hall or police station, but the health centre. According to a new computer network system linking all the health centres in Morocco, including crucially those in rural areas, had been designed and was ready to be launched from their headquarters. A special web page about Madeline had also been created to coincide with our visit. Jerry and I were completely blown away to be invited to press the Go Live button, activate not only Morocco's new network, but with it the Madeline page, thereby alerting all the health centres across the country to their disappearance and our need to find her. A good day, if any, can be without Madeline. A positive and reassuring visit. In some ways, we hope that Madeline is here. I long for that day when I have my beautiful Madeline back in my arms. On our final morning, the lady who'd been interpreting for us arranged for us to meet the Minister of Islamic Affairs, who happened to be her father-in-law. I was keen to talk to an Islamic religious leader to seek the support and prayers of the Muslim community. The minister was an academic senior cleric and an advertiser to the king, and he seemed kind, genuine, and receptive. We explains that we lived in Leicester, a multicultural city where many people of different faiths have been praying for Madeline, and told him how important this was for us. I asked if he would urge the Muslim people here to pray for her too, and for all missing children. He promised us that he would, adding that he was certain we would be reunited with our daughter. Before leaving Morocco, we had a call from the British police. He told us that by the time the CCTV pictures had been requested from the garage in Marrakesh, where Marioli was convinced she'd seen Madeline, all footage from before 14th of May had been erased. Oh, isn't that awful? Apparently, the police had visited the garage soon after Mary's call and reported that there was no CCTV. However, they had all looked only on the forecourt, failing to notice the camera in the shop. When the images were finally retrieved several days later, it was too late. Oh my God. This was soul-destroying news. If this little girl was Madeline, she could have been back with us by now. If she wasn't, we would at least be able to eliminate this sighting from the investigation and put an end to our own hopes that it might lead somewhere. As it is, we still don't know whether that little girl was our daughter, and we may never know. I was grateful to find there was a jet available to return us to Portugal. At Lisbon Airport, Jerry and I said our goodbyes to Clarence. He was going home to his family and the media monitoring unit. He'd done a fantastic job over the previous weeks with everything we packed in. I felt much longer than that, and that was important to us, was that we knew Clarence cared deeply about getting Madeline back and would continue to help us in any way he could. We couldn't have anticipated he'd be rejoining us as soon as he did, and we never thought for a minute that 4 years down the line he'd still be fighting for Madeline's corner alongside us. In the meantime, we will be welcoming Justine McGuinness, who will be arriving as coordinator of the Find Madeline campaign on the 22nd of June, Madeline's 15th day away from us. 50th day, sorry. Back in Prior Day Lou, we were regaled with tales of twinny exploits from Auntie Anne and Uncle Michael, including Let's Paint the Bedroom with Pseudo Creme Saga. It was good to know they'd have fun. Our trips to these key cities have been hard going, but we were satisfied that they have boosted our campaign. Looking back on them now, however, we can't but wonder whether many of them powerful figures were encounters were merely handing out platitudes. With the eyes of the world upon us and anyone associated with us, this agreement to meet Jerry and me was perhaps designed more to forestall potential criticism from the international press than to benefit Madeline. But we learned a great deal of lasting value from the NGOs, and I have no doubt that their representatives, committed as they were to the plight of missing children, were genuinely motivated to help. And at the very least, we had spread the word across Europe and North Africa, and this could and still carry only improve our chances of finding Madeline. Keen to find out what progress, if any, had been made to the police investigation, 2 days later, we were back in Port Mayo with Gil Marato and Sergio Louis Neves. While we were there, Neves took a phone call and suddenly became very animated. He was clearly worried and angry. The Dutch newspaper, Die Telegraaf, he told us, had revealed in an article that they'd received a letter from someone claiming to be Madeline's abductor. The letter alleged that her body was buried in somewhere about 10 miles from Luz. There had been plenty of crank calls and letters from all over Europe. The reason why this claim had been singled out by the newspaper as a story, not that there has ever been a reason, or so it seems, was that the letter was apparently very similar to one received the year before regarding the location of the bodies of 2 young girls abducted in Belgium. They had been found later the same day, albeit 15 kilometres away from the location given. 100 or so reporters had now gone to ODX, I don't know where it is, sorry, can't even begin to pronounce it. It's ODIAXERE. So they went to look for Madeline's body. I might sound quite matter of fact about this, but at the time I was beside myself. I felt as if cold hard reality was hitting me with a sickening thud. I remember leaving the room and locking myself in the toilet. It was probably the tiniest cubicle I've ever seen, which only intensified my suffocating fear. I pulled out my mobile phone and began to text 6 devout family members and friends. Quietly in my head, I thought of them as my prayer group. Please pray for Madeline. I returned to the meeting room. Somebody texts back, "Of course, everything okay?" The lack of a response was probably enough of an answer. Jerry was far more rational about this incident than I was, although I'm sure deep down he was just as scared and not as certain as he seemed. "Kate, where is the credibility?" He said. He tried to reassure me. "This information has come from a newspaper acting irresponsibly." He was proved right, thankfully. The police investigating were in contact with the Dutch journalists to compare the 2 letters, which were found to be quite different, and searches of the area later that day turned out nothing. Interestingly, 2 search and rescue soldiers who come out to Prior Day Lou to lend a hand in May, completely off their own accord, found Sandy that evening. They assured him they'd scoured that area in question then and were confident there was nothing terrible to be found there. We'd met these guys the previous month, and they were good, decent blokes. They won't know how much relief and comfort their call brought me that night. All relationships have their ups and downs, and our dealing with the police, though generally amiable enough, was no exception. On the evening of the 17th of June, the Portuguese police were quoted on Sky News as having stated that the crime scene at apartment 5A had been contaminated by us and our friends, and that as a consequence, vital evidence had been lost. I was livid. First of all, it was unfair. The preservation of the crime scene was the responsibility of the police and should have been overseen by an experienced officer. Second, it was inaccurate. The forensic department clearly stated, as would be confirmed in the police files released the following year, that significant contamination had resulted from police dogs being allowed into the room before they conducted their examination. Third, it was incredibly insensitive, implying as it did that we had destroyed evidence that could have helped to find our daughter, and that especially hurt badly. The following morning, Jerry rang several people: Ricardo Paeva, British Consul, Bill Henderson, Ambassador, John Buck, and DSS Bob Small, seeking some kind of explanation and redress for the comments from the police. We were told that their spokesman, a chief inspector called Olgerio de Sousa, was embarrassed and apologetic. A couple of days later, he came along with I'll just say GE, to our regular meeting, where he appeared suitably chastened and admitted that he'd fallen into a media trap. We knew as well as anyone that it takes a while to become media savvy if you're not used to dealing with the press, and Sousa certainly wasn't. Medium liaison was not a role that existed in the Portuguese police in normal circumstances, and he had been nominated as the police spokesman for the case largely, I think, because he spoke good English. Given the restrictions of the judicial secrecy law, the police usually had little reason to engage with the press, or not officially in any rate. The unprecedented efforts of the police to accommodate the demands of the international media were perhaps partly responsible for the grumbling in the Portuguese press that we were being given special treatment. Alex Woolfall had advised us early on not to speak to any reporters who approached us directly. Since everyone wanted to speak to us, it would only be resulting in us talking to the press constantly, saying the same things over and over again, and there was nothing to be gained from that. The British media used statements, briefings, and press conferences. We're familiar with working in this way, but it undoubtedly caused some consternation working among the Portuguese counterparts, who operated on a much more informal basis. Over the summer, we also began to realise that elements within the Portuguese police routinely flouted their own law and indeed maintained extremely close relationships with the selected journalists. At our next meeting with the Neves and Encarceo on the 20th of June, we would intensively raise the possibility of bringing in Dane Krugel, a South African ex-police officer who claimed to have combined DNA and satellite tracking technology to develop a device that could be used to locate missing persons. I know this sounds mad, so let me rewind a little to explain. Dane's name and his offer of help had reached us via a variety of sources within the first few weeks of Madeline's disappearance. At the time, we were in too much turmoil to pay much attention to anything, and so in any case, we had all our hopes pinned on the police investigation. Towards the end of May, a friend of Dane's arrived in Praia de Lu and virtually pleaded with me to take up his offer. She spoke of references from the South African police, for whom his machine had brought results of its 80% success rate, and had support of the South African Minister for Justice. Whether we were influenced by the distance this young mother had travelled just to talk to us, or whether we were simply plain desperate, I can't be sure. Putting it into perspective today, I'd say it was the latter, but by now we were more receptive. We were told all we needed to do was to provide samples of Madeline's DNA. Desperation does strange things to people. We're scientists and we don't believe in hocus pocus or crackpot inventions. How on earth can a machine use a single hair to locate somebody anywhere in the world? It's impossible, surely. It makes no sense to us now, and it didn't then, but we wanted so badly to find Madeline that we didn't need to know how it worked. We even managed to turn a blind eye to the fact that Danny's matter orientation system hadn't been formally tested by any independent and trustworthy authority. Danny sounded like a nice person, family man, fellow Christian, and indeed he was. As the Director of Protection Services and Occupational Health and Safety at the Central University of Technology in Bloemfontein, he was professionally credible, as he was prepared to bring his machine over from South Africa to find Madeline for us. I felt a heavy sadness now, though at the memory of how close to the edge we were and how vulnerable that made us. I remember talking to Jerry and Sandy, trying to decide what to do. Even Sandy, who dismisses as anything lacking logic or transparency as mumbo jumbo, felt, as we did, that since the investigation appeared to have ground to a halt, it was worth trying anything. What else did we have? What harm could we do? So in the second week of June, we had confided in Auntie Janet and our friend Amanda back in Leicestershire and got them to go round to our house looking for hairs that could only be Madeline's. They came back with 5 head hairs from the insides of a coat hood and a couple of eyelashes from her pillow, and couriered the lot off to Danny in South Africa. They didn't question what we were doing. They too were just desperate for Madeline to be home. A week or so afterwards, Danny informed us that he had obtained signals relating to Prior Day Lou, but that he would need to come over in July and operate the machine in the Algarve to produce more accurate results and pinpoint Madeline's location. This all seemed to make sense, or at least more sense, than trying to find her from there. So here we are now, discussing all this with Louis Nebbs and Guillermo Encarno. Somewhat to our surprise, they seemed quite amiable to be giving it a go and agreed to smooth Danny's transfer through the airport. He had certain requirements to ensure that the safety of his OMS machine in a couple of weeks' time. Another matter I raised that day was how significant they felt was that Fiona, Rachel, and Russell had all reported seeing Robert Muras outside our apartment on the night Madeline had been taken. Louis suddenly got quite agitated. No case, he snapped. Our friends hadn't mentioned this in their statements, he said. Slightly thrown by this rather aggressive response, I insisted a little nervously that I was sure they had, not in their first statements, but in the ones they had given after Murat was named as an arguido, having recognised him straight away from the television news. They had merely stated when and where they had seen this man and that he'd been offering his services as an interpreter. That was it. They hadn't voiced any suspicions that he was involved. I can't imagine why Nebbs never seemed to want to brush my question aside. Perhaps it was simply because he didn't have an answer. I'm aware now that the police were struggling to move the Murat line of inquiry forward, and they were probably feeling quite frustrated. Perhaps I touched a raw nerve. At our next meeting, Nebbs was to change tact and tell us that one of the Ocean Club managers, Sylvia Batista, the lady who had translated for us on the 3rd of May, had also reported seeing Murat outside our apartment that night. There were so many unanswered questions going round and round my brain, so many days when all I wanted to do was pull the duvet over my head and for it all to go away. On Saturday, the 30th of June, a piece entitled A Pact of Silence, written by journalists Felissa Cabrita and Margarida de Vim, appeared in a Portuguese newspaper. The criticism implied in the title was itself interesting, given that this was a country where disregard for judicial secrecy carried the threat of a prison sentence. This was probably the first article openly to cast doubt on our version of events on the 3rd of May. It raised suspicions about us and our friends, about our characters, and about our potential involvement in Madeline's disappearance. Several days before it was published, all of us, Fiona, David, and Russell, Matt and Rachel, as well as Jerry and I, had been contacted on our mobile phones by a reporter. Everyone had given her short shrift, but it was clear that somebody had provided her not only with our mobile numbers, but with other personal information too. She had addresses me and Kate Healy, and although this was the name by which I was always known before Madeline's abduction, since then I'd only ever been referred to as Mrs. McCann. She called Jerry Gerald, a name he never uses. She knew that Jane and Russell had recently moved to Devon. It was obvious that this reporter had been given access to our statements, our passport details, or some other official document. There was no prizes for guessing by who. Evidently, there was a leak within the Policia Judiciaria. We brought up this matter at our next meeting with Nebson and Carcillo on the 5th of July. They agreed that yes, there must be a leak from the police, but in spite of the endlessly cited judicial secrecy law, no internal inquiry was ever launched. My God. Since our series of campaign trips, it had become apparent that with coverage having reached saturation point, the press were exploring different angles. Their appetite for the human interest aspect seemed insatiable. No longer was it about our lovely missing daughter. It was becoming the Kate and Jerry show. Our friend John Corner had predicted this very early on. After sitting in on an interview with Session with the British journalist one day, he said to us, "They're asking you about whether you still go running and what kind of trainers you wear. For God's sake, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get. It will be all about you and not Madeline. We have made a strategic decision to signal to the media that we will be withdrawing from their spotlight. The face of the campaign had to be Madeline's, not ours. We would continue to get interviews that were in her interest, of course, but otherwise, until there was an important development or event, we would be running the campaign more quietly and not commenting on everyday matters. There was no point in diluting the impact of the campaign by reporting on it constantly. Much to our surprise, however, the press, and in particular the photographers, showed no sign of leaving Praia de Lu. This put us in a difficult position and led to some friction with Justine McGuinness, our new campaign manager. As we had very little to say, yet at the same time, the paper still seemed to require a daily photograph of us. We were essentially appeasing the tabloids without generating any significant benefits for the campaign. It wasn't necessary to bombard the public day in and day out with pictures of us, and the presence of the photographers encouraged the journalists to stay. No right pieces to accompany the photographs. Even then, there was nothing much to be written. There was no doubt the background to a lot of the ludicrous tales that now appeared embellished by quotes supposedly uttered by us or by sources close to the McCanns. The lack of new fuel for the machine also meant that a lot of the knocking pieces springing up in the Portuguese press were promoted to the front pages in the UK throughout July and on to August. After expressing our intention to remain in the background, we talked about how we might put the resources now at our disposal to good use in the longer term if the search for Madeline continued to yield nothing. Our visits to Spain, Germany, and the Netherlands and Morocco had given us a glimpse of the massive scale of the problems of child abduction, trafficking, and exploitation, and we felt we must broaden the scope of our campaign to embrace all victims of these terrible crimes. We were now aware of the need, for example, to set up coordinated and effective child rescue alerts across Europe. Given the huge support we have been given ourselves, we had a moral obligation to try to do something to make Europe a safer place for children. If, God forbid, we couldn't help Madeline, we were determined that some lasting good should come out of our nightmare. The sexual exploitation of children in particular is shocking rife worldwide. The victims of the billion-dollar child pornography industry are becoming younger to approximately a third are under the age of 6. Oh my God. A lot of what I'd learned to make me feel sick. I was horrified as a reasonably intelligent and well-informed person, and as a mother, by how little I knew of this. I felt as if I had been living my life in a cocoon. Another valuable source of information was Lady Catherine Mayer, the friend Sherry Blair had mentioned to me in her phone call. Catherine, the wife of the former British ambassador to the US, had set up PACT, parents and abducted children together after their own 2 sons were abducted by her ex-husband. She has fought tirelessly ever since for a better international response to such crimes. I so admire her commitment to a passion for protecting children. She is feisty, determined, and has a good sense of humour, and is not afraid to say what she thinks. Such qualities are essential in this field where there is so much red tape to be dealt with. At the end of June, Jerry spoke to Ernie Allen, CEO of the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the USA. For exploited children in the USA. The organisation was established in 1984 thanks to lobbying of Congress by John Reverend Walsh, where their 6-year-old son Adam was abducted and found murdered in Florida in 1981. They had all experienced the same kinds of pain and frustration at inadequate responses that we were suffering now. Today, the NCMEC offers a vast range of resources to law enforcement agencies investigating cases of missing, abducted, and exploited children, as well as training and education for people working in the field. I came into the sitting room just as Jerry was finishing an hour-long phone call to find my husband almost radiant and brimming with optimism. He was already planning to fly out to Washington, D.C. at the earliest opportunity to find out more about the work of the NCMEC for himself. It wasn't just Ernie's positive attitude and encouragement that had lifted Jerry, but the numerous examples he had cited of missing children who had been found. Sometimes years later, there really was hope. I hadn't seen Jerry looking so inspired in 2 months. Although our lives were unpredictable and could never now be defined as normal, sometimes days would go by. We jogged along fairly evenly, but then we would be perplexed by some bolt from the blue. Unfortunately, most of these shocks would be bad ones. The saddest were those delivered with the intention of causing harm. There were frequent attempts to extort money from us, which were the reason for most of Detective Ricardo Payhaven's visits to our apartment. One I remember from the last days of June was fairly typical. A Dutchman contacted the police on the email address given on their website, saying that he knew who had Madeline and where she was, and asking for money, of course. As the instigation of the police, Jerry set up a separate email account to correspond with this guy, buying time for the police to track him down from the IP address he was using. Passing incoming messages to the police and taking their advice on what to say in his replies, the man was emailing from an internet cafe. And within a few days, on the 6th of July, he was arrested in the Netherlands, having been under surveillance in a casino, if I remember rightly. Another couple, an Italian man and a Portuguese woman, had been picked up only the previous week for a separate extortion attempt, as they were already wanted by the police in France. It was a mystery why they thought it a good idea to draw attention to themselves in this way. Thankfully, though, there were some nice surprises too, arising in particular from the kindness and friendship of some wonderful people now entering our lives. At the beginning of July, we received the following letter. Dear McCanns, I have a house in Praia de Lou. Being ashamed of this intrusion to your lives by our media, and if you would care to come to lunch dinner at any time before Wednesday next, do ring and let me know. I cook decent meals. Sincerely, Clement Freud. I'm embarrassed to admit that Jerry and I thought this letter was a hoax. More embarrassing still, while we were vaguely aware of Sir Clement, we had to have our memories refreshed by Sandy and Justine before we could place him exactly. Mind you, he wore so many hats: humorist, MP gourmet, gambler, press columnist, advertiser of dog food, radio and TV personality, that he was hard to pin down. Jerry responded with a phone call, and Sir Clement invited the 7 of us there at a time. Jerry and myself with Sean and Amali, plus Trisha, Sandy and Justine to follow. The following day, he will be heading back to the UK a few hours later. Sir Clement was 83 by then, but his intellect was still razor sharp. He was appearing at the demanding Radio 4 panel game, Just a Minute, right up to his death in 2009. I'm usually very intimidated by people with brains the size of planets, but Clement was incredibly warm, funny, and instantly likable. His opening words were, "Can I interest you in a strawberry vodka?" It was midday. I hesitated for a split second, rapidly trying to work out if he was joking. His expression, as always, was deadpan. Not wanting to appear unsociable, I responded, okay, that would be nice. Of course, Clement's remark about cooking decent meals was tongue in cheek. Among his other accomplishments, he had trained as a chef and was for many years a food writer and a restaurant critic. I can confirm that the lunch he prepared for us that day was bloody marvellous. Watercress and egg salad, followed by a chicken and mushroom risotto, the best risotto you've ever tasted before or since. Clement cheered us up with his lugubrious wit and will continue to do so by email after his return to England. There was another invitation a few days later from the detective Ricardo Pava and his wife to dinner at their apartment in Lego. We were pleased to accept. It was reassuring to have a close and amicable relationship with someone who was officially involved in our daughter's case, even if it wasn't perhaps the done thing to be socializing with one of the investigation team. It made us feel that Ricardo and his wife generally cared about us and, more importantly, about Madeline. Sean and Amali were very excited to meet their little boy, especially as he had lots of excitingly unfamiliar toys to share with them. Two other couples, neighbours of Ricardo's, also joined us. As far as such a thing was possible in my cold new world, it was a good evening, though I found it hard to allow myself to really relax and enjoy it. Ricardo made us great martini, and his wife had prepared a fantastic meal. She and their friends spoke only a little English, but it was an improvement on our Portuguese. Meanwhile, on the 2nd of July, we had moved out of the Ocean Club and into a rented villa, the cheapest we could find that suited our requirements. Jerry was now on unpaid leave. In Paris Cluse, about 10 minutes walk away, apartment 4G was no longer available, and I think this perhaps prompted Mark Warner to try ease us out. They have been good to us, but we have been with them now for over 2 months. By then, and I can see that our presence must have been unsettling for their other guests. Like everyone, except for us, sadly, they had to move on. Sean and Amali were still welcome to Toddler Club, and Mark Warner carried on allowing us to use their pool too. The move made sense for us as well. At the villa, we had more privacy. We also rented a small flat at the Ocean Club for Justine. She had ended up doing a different job from the one she'd signed up for, media liaison in addition to campaign management, and was having to spend more time in Portugal than either we or she had anticipated. Tricia and Sandy came with us, sleeping on a folded down bed in the bedroom we were using as an office, or when other people came to stay, taking themselves off to Justin's apartment. On Thursday, the 11th of July, Fiona, Rachel, and Russell were back in Portugal. The police wanted to clarify their statements, evidently in relation to their sightings of Robert Murat, by holding a confrontational interview between the witnesses and the arguido. This legal procedure involves bringing interviewees together effectively to argue the toss about the inconsistencies in their accounts in front of an arbitrator with a view to reaching a consensus. Russ, Rachel, and Fiona had to sit in a semicircle with Murat and his lawyer, Francisco Pagaret, so close together. Russell recounted later that his knee was virtually touching Murat's. They waited for a while because the police said Sylvia Baptiste would be joining them. For some reason, she never did. I'm sure this interviewing technique must have been incredibly uncomfortable and stressful for everyone. The statements given by Russell, Rachel, and Fiona were read out in turn in Portuguese by the questioning officer, Paulo Ferreira, and then translated by an interpreter. Guilherme Encarnato was also present. They were asked to confirm that their respective accounts were correct, which they all did. During the reading of each statement, they told us Murat leaned forward, staring intensely at the person who had given it. His statement was then read out in Portuguese, which made it difficult for Fiona, Rachel, or Russ to dispute it in any detail. And he was asked some questions again in Portuguese. Many of these he was advised not to answer by Paraget, as was his right as an arguido. And on one occasion, hang on, where am I? And on one occasion, he and his lawyers left the room together for a private conversation. The only responses given by Murat, comprehensible to our friends, was that he hadn't been outside our apartment on the May 3rd, and that the three of them were lying. When we saw them afterwards, they were noticeably incensed by Murat's manner during the accaratio. The next day, Jerry left for London to attend the National Police Bravery Awards. We had been invited there by the son who sponsored the event and wanted to give us a special award. We didn't feel comfortable with that. We hadn't performed some brave deeds, and we had merely responded to the disaster that had befallen us as any parent would. They told us that was fine. We didn't have to accept any tribute. All they wanted to do was support us. If we thought it would help, one or both of us could come along, whatever felt right. I was reluctant to leave the twins any more than was necessary, so we decided that Jerry would go and just say a few words to express our thanks to the police. He was pretty emotional, especially after the clip from the Don't You Forget About Me film was shown, and so were quite a few of the police apparently. They gave him a standing ovation while he was in London. He took the opportunity on the Friday to visit the CEOP headquarters and spent a few hours there learning more about their work. That weekend, the children and I flew out to the UK, and we were joined by Jerry in Yorkshire. Michael and Anna Marie had asked us to stand as godparents to their children, Katie and Patrick, and had never been baptised as babies. And I think the decision to do this now, and perhaps being precipitated by what had happened to us, it had concentrated everyone's mind on how fragile life is, how it can be wrecked in an instant. Naturally, we badly wanted to be at the baptism. I had not set foot in the UK since Madeline's abduction, and although for me this was an emotional journey, it was not the same as going home. The press, however, were bound to see it that way, and we were worried they would turn up in force and spoil the family occasion. So, with the cooperation of the authorities in both countries, we kept it under the radar, and thanks to the police for once, we managed to stay one step ahead of the media shadows, much to their annoyance when they eventually found out. Instead, the church was patrolled by police. Skipton, Michael declared, had never seen so many, a rather more reassuring and less intrusive presence. We flew back to Portugal earlier on that morning of Sunday, the 15th of July, the day Daniel Grugel, his team, and his matter orientation system arrived in Praia de Leu. He gave us some fairly vague information about the procedure and reaffirmed his machine 80% success rate. He wouldn't let us see any of the equipment because of the necessity to protect his trade secrets while he awaited a patent. No idea at all how it works. Seems ridiculous, but they're no more than some of psychic stuff we've already acted on and given time to. We've got nothing to lose and have said so. We will leave no stone unturned. That was what she wrote in a journal. In spite of the cynical tone of my diary entry, we were actually both quite excited about the prospect of Danny's work, though I think this was probably due to more to the fact that something was happening which might take an investigation forward than to absolute faith in his methods. It might come to naught, and we knew that, but anything was better than the sense of stagnation we felt that was beginning to seep in. We still had plenty to do, whether it was coming up with the campaign ideas to complement the investigation or trying to reply to thousands of letters and emails we continued to receive. And emerging from those grueling early weeks, we were able to devote more time to Shaw and O'Malley. We'd been so destroyed, so consumed by our pain and fear, that we felt our role as the parents had been compromised. We all had been robbed of so much, including the twins. Not only had they had their big sister snatched from them, but we had been absent physically and psychologically. In mid-July, I found O'Malley standing in our room, looking at a photograph of Madeline in a frame by my bedside. I miss my sister, she said quite clearly. Where has my sister gone? I was, of course, completely unaware. I realised I'd underestimated both her grasp of the situation and the scope of her vocabulary. Maternal guilt often weighed heavily on my shoulders. The twins needed our love. They needed us. The capacity to love is limitless. It was often told, but I was so engulfed by Madeline that I worried I might not have enough love left over for Sean and Emily. Something else to beat myself up about, and not only did they need us, we needed them. Their love and laughter was the best medicine we could have ever asked for, and we'll be eternally grateful for that and for them. Wednesday, the 18th of July, the start of the downward spiral for me. When I look back at our meeting with the Nebs and the Encarnato that day, I recognise it as a turning point, the beginning of what was to blow up in a whole new nightmare. On the plus side, it could be said that we covered a lot of ground, but it was all incredibly deflating, and some of it was downright stomach churning. Once again, the police shared details about Muras. Once again, they bemoaned the absence of hard evidence. My frustration with their lack of progress, combined with what they were actually telling us about him, whipped up a storm of fury in me that was completely out of character. It seemed to me now as if for several months I was possessed by some demonic alien that infiltrated my thoughts and filled me with anger and hatred. I needed a face on which to pin all this rage, someone to blame, and although, as I now know, the police had no case against Murat, they handed him to me on a plate, since they had insinuated throughout that he might be the person responsible for the unimaginable fear and pain suffered by our little girl. Is it any wonder I felt as I did? The meeting ended with a final body blow. Danny Grugel, on whom we had irrationally hung on to so much hope, had produced a report for the police based on his findings. His machine had recorded a static signal from an area around the beach, close to or on the Roche Negra cliff. Although this included villas, apartments, and other buildings, the implication of the static signal was that Madeline was most likely to be dead and buried there. I wasn't sure how much more I could take. Each piece of bad news, regardless of how real or plausible it was, invariably plunged me into despair. There would be endless tears, out of control hysteria, feverish sessions of prayer, and there would be several visits to my rocks, a quiet part of the beach away from the promenade, as swimmers and the sunbather preferred the sandy stretches. This area where the rocks reached down to the water was unusually deserted and afforded me some shelter and privacy. I still go back there on my visits to Praia de Lu to be on my own. Here, I would simply sob to a friend on the phone for hours on end, sometimes without articulating a single word. Today was one of those days. I could feel myself sinking lower and lower into a black and lonely place. What I didn't anticipate this time was just how long it would take me to climb out of it again. There was one piece of good news we heard, that the UK's National Policing Improvement Agency, in conjunction with the Portuguese police, worked to conduct a new ground search. We've been trying to establish the exact scope of previous searches and pressing for another one for ages. Finally, on the 20th of July, the MPIA received a request from the police for search advisory assistance. Progress. In recent weeks, the police had seemed more receptive to the ideas of the UK police, especially since the arrival of Jose Fratius, a SEOCA officer from England. As Jose, whose parents were from Madeira, were fluent in Portuguese, he had been able to forge a rather better working relationship with the local police than had been achieved previously, and the police seemed to have become more willing to share information. Before the new search, a comprehensive geological survey from air, land and sea would be carried out. We found out only later, much later, that the UK team had been instructed by the police to proceed on the basis that Madeline had been killed and her body dumped. They would be using GPR ground penetrating radar for the detecting ground disturbance devices for penetrating walls and specialist dogs. The police files reveal that the MPIA were willing to assist with searches based on other superstitions, but this had to be at the police's request. Evidently, there was no such request. No other theories were to be considered at this point, it seems. This search, the second or maybe even the third, over the same terrain, would encompass the land identified by Danny Krugel. It would later be extended to include both Robert Murat's villa at apartment 5A at the Ocean Club. Although we didn't, in our rational moments, set much store by its results, we were keen for the area to be checked just to make sure. And such a search didn't necessarily mean turning up a body. It could reveal vital clues. By now, we were more than familiar with cases where evidence had been missed the first time round and discovered on further searches. In one instance, the UK police had told us about a wallet sitting in a bush. At this stage, I was also still giving some credence to the information we were receiving from psychics, some of whom were suggesting that we should scour nearby territory again. Whatever everyone's reason, we needed to be sure that everything had been done as meticulously and extensively as possible. Day 80 came and went, and still no Madeline. 80 days was significant for me because that was how long the Belgian schoolgirl Sabine Dardenne had been kept captive by the evil rapist and murderer Marc Dutroux before being found and freed. I clung on to happy endings like these, but needless to say, as the deadlines in my head passed, I'd been knocked for six again. That same day, 22nd of July, the Sunday Express ran the headline, Maggie's parents to face inquiry for neglect. According to the newspaper, by now we were no strangers to this line of attack, but it was still incredibly hurtful as it blamed us indirectly for Madeline's abduction. We were not hurt so much by what people might or might not think of us, but by the painful reminder that however unwittingly we'd given this predator an opportunity, we had not been there for Madeline. And as I've said before, and will say again, our guilt over that is a heavy cross we will bear for the rest of our lives. As for the abductor, he must have been smiling smugly to himself and thinking, keep blaming the parents, just leave me out of it, hidden and anonymous, to carry on doing what I do, stealing children. Had everyone forgotten about this man, whoever he was? He was still out there. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it a day. I'm sorry if I went on a bit long. What I said I should read till 1:30 what time? Oh, it's 9:00. Just gone 9. I hope you're all heard anyway, and there was no interruption in the mic sounding okay or anything. So, just want to say, did you hear everything okay? And what you think? Isn't it terrible, having to go through all that? Oh, pink, I'm as dry as a bone. I haven't got a drink left. Al, can you give us a little drink of orange? Please, I'm really dry. Oh, brilliant. What's up, Pink? What's going on, girl? What you need to get sorted? I'll be in tomorrow, see what comes of that and bloods later in the week. Just still useless trying to get any help. What's up, Pink? Oh, you're welcome, Liz. Did you want the book or the Kindle? Will it be better with the Kindle, wouldn't I? Because I'd be able to read it from my phone, do you think, Pink? Yeah, it'd be cheaper for the Kindle, wouldn't it, Gail? And tell me how much it is and I'll pay you. Just give me your PayPal details, love. Try as a bone, Liz. Did you get to listen okay, or was you getting people coming in and out? Because I've near been on 3 hours. Oh, you're welcome, Inspirational. No, love, you best just ordering the Kindle, and I can read from that, Gail, and that's the cheapest anyway. So the Kindle I'll read from, not a problem, love. It's late to do it again, like. But yeah, that'd be smashing if you can do that. Or tell me how I go and do it, because I can't order it on Amazon. It doesn't do it. So if you let me know where I can go and do it, Gail, save you paying out. I don't mind, honestly. I'll just swag that down, tries the bone. Oh, thanks for staying. I'm made up. Let's have a little look. I'm just going to go up and have a little look, see who's in chat. Because it's hard, isn't it, to listen to the story when you've got people coming in and out. Like when you're sitting watching a film and the door goes and you think, oh, who's that now? Did we have any trolls? Was it only Leanie? Leanie, the only troll we had. I'll leave it with you, Pink. I'll trust you with that, Gail. You let me know where I can get it, love. Let's have a look. I'm just reading a bit of chat, love. I've only got to take my eye off that book for a second. I forget where I am. I thought I'd tapped one of the buttons on the laptop. So it looked over to the laptop to check where the book was. You know, if the corner of the book had hit something, had gone on mute or something. And I forgot where it was. That's why I was like, oh my God, where am I? But it just shows you, doesn't it, how to press and turn on you at anything, and what your heart must be torn, mustn't it, when you think they've got some clue or a phone call. Poor Jesse's lying there, snoring the brains out on and off. Come here, girl. Come to see. Come on and finish now. Want to play with the ball? Bring it here. So, what's this? It's because I'm always listening, doing whatever. Also, uniforms. Oh, God, girl. Doing the uniforms to school tomorrow. Oh, I'm glad that you got to listen and you didn't get much intrusion. I'm going to go, girls. Thanks very much again. And we'll do it again tomorrow. It'll probably be about 7:45 again, 8 o'clock. Something like that. That's when Alec goes to gym. I'll do it then till he comes back. He only goes for an hour. So I'll read probably till about 10. If you still want to, let's see how much I've got left. Got quite a bit. I've got off. I'd say another half. Oh my God, didn't think it was that much. So I'm going to say good night to you all, and thanks very much for coming in. Good night and God bless. Have a good kip. If there's anyone here from the US, have a good day, a good afternoon, whatever. Lizzo, thank you, love. Pink, thank you too. Loads and loads and loads. Is there anybody here? Donna in the bushes. Not Donna, Barbara it is. God, I'm getting it wrong. Barbara. in the bushes. Good night, Liz. Love you, girl. Good night, Pink. Love you. Thanks very much. Lainey, if you can hear me while you're wallpapering. I don't love you. Can't bear the bones, yeah. When you're kidding, I love you loads. And I'll speak to you soon. Good night and God bless. I'm going to see if I can play music now. Because I won't get over it. I won't get over it if I can. Hold on. Oh, God, I think I'm going to be able to. Really swear down. Oh my God, you're not going to get over it. Let's see. Ta-ra, guys. I can't get over it. Good night and God bless. Love yous. Speak tomorrow. Bye.
Life is hard and life is wild. It can be sad or full of smiles. And every once in a while, you need a break from the mundane. So come back to see your friend, or she'll wonder where you've been. According to Leanie, she appreciates you and all that you do. You need her, but she needs you, and that's the beauty of according to Leanie. So thank you for your time. You are a friend of mine. I'll be happy to see you again on the next According to Leanie. Be good or be good at it. Until next time, love Leanie, love Leanie, love Leanie. Next time, love Leanie, love Leanie. Life is hard and life is wild. It can be sad or full of smiles. And every once in a while, you need a break from the mundane. So come back to see your friend, or she'll wonder where you've been. According to Leanie, she appreciates you and all that you do. You need her, she needs you, and that's the beauty of according to Leanie. Be good or be good at it. Until next time, love Leanie, love Leanie, love Leanie.